I am not opposed to kidnapping her in the middle of the night and removing her and sending her to another more rural location where she doesn't bother anyone. I'm just saying in my fantasy world. I'm not saying in real life. I'm not advocating for that in real life. I'm not advocating for kidnapping in real life. I'm saying in my ideal fantasy world, this is make-believe. I'm not advocating for this in real life. I'm just saying that if I lived in the same town as Leonarda and I was in charge of that town, there would be someone going to Leonarda's house and putting a bag over her head in the middle of the night and throwing her in the back of a van and taking her and driving a very long way. They're going to have to drug her or something because she's going to be crying. They're going to have to tie her up. This is a fantasy. This is not real. I'm not actually advocating for this. I'm not advocating for violence or kidnapping. Just in my mind, in my dream world. And they're going to drive out to the woods a long ass way. We're talking like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And they're going to leave her in the middle of the woods. And they'll untie her and stuff. And then she can wake up hundreds of miles away. And she can make a life for herself somewhere else. I'm not advocating for murdering her. I would never do that. This is just a dream in which I can remove someone from my world that I don't like and put them somewhere else where I never have to interact with them ever. There are many people who would be in that world. Candace Owens would be in the woods. Rabbi Shmuley would be in the woods. Everyone with an IQ below 75 would be in the woods, except for people with Down syndrome, because we can all admit that, like, people with Down syndrome, they bring joy and there is a pure energy about them, and we don't want to banish them to the woods because they're good. Internally, they're good, and we should take care of them and help them live a good and productive life because they bring love and purity into the world. I'm saying like black people that are criminals and stuff like that, they can go into the woods. They can all live together in the woods, away. It'll turn into like a third world country. It'll turn into Africa. And that's okay. It's okay that it turns, you know what? There are a lot of people that live in Africa, and it's fine. It's fine for them. I don't have to be there, though. I can continue to be in New Hampshire where I am. Well, who doesn't want to send people that they can't stand into the woods? I just don't know why this is a controversial position. I think that this just makes sense. You should really only have to live around the people that you want to live around. And if you don't want to live around people and you're in charge of a certain area, just send them away. Milo says, we are so spoiled with a great chat community here. It was frustrating the hell out of me that X Space does not have real-time chat. It's a huge limitation for that platform. Yeah, I agree with that. That would actually be great for Spaces to have real-time chat. It's not like they can't do it. They do it for live streams. I think that would be a really great improvement, Milo. I agree. I also agree that everyone that is in my community, that is in my nice, civil, smart chat, we are all very lucky. We're all very lucky. We occasionally have times where it's demonstrated how lucky we are because sometimes we forget. Sometimes we forget what it's like on other sides of the internet. And we were reminded of what it's like on other sides of the internet last night. And I think that, you know, we all feel better about the hundreds of people that I blocked last night on Twitter, that they will never show up in this space again. They have been sent to the fucking woods. They've been sent to the woods. We don't wish them ill. I don't want them to die or anything. I don't wish them bodily harm. I just want them to go away and leave me alone and leave all of us alone because it is stupid people that are fucking up our world. It is stupid people that we have to coddle, that we have to pat on the head and say, no, honey, I promise you're not low IQ. No, it's okay, honey. It's okay to be stupid. It's okay. This is the problem. We just need to create they just need a society of their own. You know? They need to be around their own kind. I've really come around to this idea. You know, I used to be in favor of the idea of inclusion and diversity and all this stuff. I used to be in favor of this. I used to say, like, I don't really care if people are different, as I judge individual people based on their individual merit. I don't care if what people look like or what their background is or what their gender is or what their sexual orientation is. I don't care about any of this stuff. Like, different people are different and we have to judge people as individuals. And now I'm kind of like, I've come around to the idea that people need to be with their own kind. Stupid people need to live with stupid people. Smart people need to live with smart people. And yes, exactly, Jane, exactly. They need an island. We need to put them on an island. Again, like, I'm not wishing them death. I hope they live a long and glorious life on that island. I hope they build up an amazing third world country on that island in which they have everything that they want. But if we keep them around us, if we allow for stupid people to be around us, that's just dangerous. That's just not smart. Yeah, some might say we should send them all to Madagascar. Some might say we should send them all to... I think that's a great idea. I think it's an excellent idea. Or a similar type island. I'm sure there are all these... You know what they'll be like? They'll be like that tribe that lives on that island in, like, what is it, the South Pacific, that's never actually been in contact with the rest of the world, and they still hunt with spears and things. We need to find an island like that and just send all the stupid people there. Or we can find a whole cluster of islands. I'm sure, like, a whole bunch of these islands exist in, like, the South Pacific, and they, like, so we, like, around Australia. Yeah, Australia, that would be, like, you know, that's a big island. We need to get all the smart people off of Australia, let the stupid people stay in Australia, send all the rest of the stupid people there. The smart people from Australia can go move to Asia. They're probably Asian anyway. It would be like they're returning home. Because, I mean, like, can we just be honest? It's like relatively easy to immigrate from Asia to Australia, right? And so probably most of the smart people that live in Australia, their heritage is not Australian. They come from somewhere else. And so they can go home. They can go home, be with other smart people. Asians are incredibly smart. They're not going to have any problems. This is why, inevitably, China is going to rule all of us at some point. And then once we get all the smart people off of Australia, we can ship all the stupid people onto the island and they can have a home. And listen, there's a lot of beachfront property in Australia. Can we just be honest? Living in Australia for stupid people is probably that's like a really good setup. They're going to have snorkeling. They're going to have fishing. They're going to have all sorts of things. They're going to have nice weather. I mean, I think that this is a pretty good deal. And then we will all be happier. They will be happier. We will be happier. Everyone will be happier. And the world will be better. And we'll be able to accomplish more. Because right now, the biggest challenge that we have is stupid people. Really, that really is the biggest challenge we have. The world has dumbed people down. It has, even people who fancy themselves as being smart, they're still stupid. They're still dumb. I just don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. Welcome to The Cult, guys. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time or thereabouts, where we talk really about whatever I want to talk about. If you miss what happened last night and want to get caught up, there was a Twitter space last night in which I was exposed as being a fat Jew. What else did they call me? A lesbian, probably. I was exposed as being Jewish last night in a Twitter space, guys. Yep. But fortunately for me, I was exposed by really low IQ people, and so controlled opposition. Yep, I'm controlled opposition. Exactly. I'm a controlled opposition Jewish plant. Who doesn't believe in flat Earth. You know, I show up and all I do is talk about socialism, and I say, here is what we see when we're watching the socialist left, and I walk away getting called a fat, controlled opposition Jewish plant. And I'm like, we literally have evidence of all of this. There's literally video evidence of all of this. But no, we can't. We are no longer in a place where we can hinge into reality. Do you want to know why? Because stupid people have ruined everything. Stupid people are destroying our world. Stupid people is the reason that the left will win. Stupid people is the reason that we cannot mount any sort of discernible opposition. Stupid people who like to coddle other stupid people to make those stupid people feel like they're really smart, and give those stupid people a false sense of superiority, and give them some sort of indication that like the smart people should listen to them, and then they become entitled because then they have an expectation that the smart people are going to listen. But no, the smart people aren't going to listen. You want to know why? Because we're about 8,000 times smarter than the stupid people, and the stupid people to us look like unhinged 5-year-olds that have walked right out of the movie Idiocracy. I missed the space live, but I listened to it later, and it was hilarious listening to you find out how wignats are in real time. You know, the thing is I knew that already. This is not my first encounter with wignats. It's really not. I knew that's how they were. But I had had a really good interaction with one of those wignats a couple of weeks ago, in which he and I had actually had a civil conversation. And he was the one that invited me into that space. He was the one that set it up. He was the one that they promised me that it's going to be a civil conversation. It's not going to be a debate. We're going to bring receipts, all this stuff. And because the previous conversation had gone so well, I was like, I had no reason to doubt it, because I was like, maybe the stars have aligned. The clouds have opened. The sun is shining through. The Hallelujah choir is singing down from the sky. Maybe for once in my life, I can actually have a smart conversation on the internet. But no. No, it didn't work out. It didn't work out, and hundreds of people got blocked, and I will never interact with them again, because, again, I may not be able to send all the stupid people to an island right now. It's just a fantasy that only exists in my head. We're all allowed to think of whatever dream world we want, okay? You can't police what goes on in my head. So I might not be able to send them all to an island right now. I might not be able to ship their asses off to Australia. But I can certainly get them the fuck away from me in terms of, like, online contact. I can build a wall around my Twitter account using the block button, where I never have to interact with these people, and I never have to acknowledge these people, and I never have to see these people whining in my replies, and I never even have to know that they exist or be aware of anything that they're saying on the internet that's probably just going to make me mad anyway, because it's going to be so stupid that's not even worth interacting with. So I have virtually sent them to Australia. And now it's only the groypers from here on out. And I mean that. I really do mean that. The groypers are the only people on the dissident right that I trust. That's it. That's it. Now, I'm not saying the groypers aren't a handful, because sometimes they can be a handful. They're rowdy. They're young men. But even when I've been at odds with the groypers, they didn't set me up like they did last night. They aren't assholes. They might be rowdy and rambunctious and a little annoying, but they're not assholes. So that's that. That's that. Groypers only from here on out when it comes to dissident right-wing stuff. We have learned our lesson. We tried and we failed to interact with other people. Yep, groypers are much better than whatever that mess was last night. Yes, they are. Yep. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, or you want to catch up with things, right before this stream, I actually did another Twitter space. I did my own Twitter space. And actually, so I started this Twitter space just to kind of talk about last night a little bit. I took a couple questions, whatever. But actually, you know, something interesting happened on this Twitter space that's relevant to all of our interests. In that, you guys aren't going to believe this. James Lindsay's friend, who I don't know exactly who this person is, but they claim to be close to James Lindsay. Like, actually friends with James Lindsay in real life. Like, they have conversations. She came onto the Twitter space, and I'll post a clip of this later, but she came onto the Twitter space and she said, "Carlin, I'm friends with James Lindsay and I want you two to talk." And I was like, oh, here we go. Uh-oh. I don't know if I want to do this. Here we go. And she's like, no. I'm on your side. I was like, well, that's new. And then she said, I really want you and James to sit down and talk, and I've been trying to get him to talk to you, and he just won't do it. And I think, like, she really did seem authentic. There was a good back and forth. She seemed really authentic. And so I was like, you know what? That's an interesting development. I didn't expect that was not on my bingo card for today, but you know what? Maybe it's one of those things that it's fate. Maybe it's one of those things that Twitter space last night had to turn into a total shit show. So I had that moron Leonarda talking about me all night on the internet, so that would lead me to doing this response today to all of the low IQ retards that I just didn't feel like interacting with anymore. And in doing this response today, that attracted James Lindsay's friend into my life. And perhaps this was all meant to happen. Perhaps this is the universe aligning in unexpected ways to bring us down the path that we need to go. Perhaps that's what happened. I don't know. We'll see. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, guys. That is just Twitter drama. We can catch up on that another day. What we are doing here today is actually very exciting. I was really psyched to see this go up. So you guys know, We streamed this past weekend 22 straight hours of socialism. 22 straight hours. Well, not straight. I shouldn't say that. 22 hours out of 48 hours. We streamed a lot of fucking socialism this past weekend. But one of the presentations I was actually looking forward to the most was this one. And it was one of the first presentations of the entire conference. The genocidal returns of lesser evilism, the U.S. elections, and left strategy. And we started watching this presentation, and it was going great. And then the live stream died. And we yelled at the computer. We said, "No, socialists, why do you always suck at technology?" And then the live stream came back, and then it died. And then it came back again, and then it died again. And then they just canceled the whole thing, and they said they would post the video later. And so now they posted the video, and so we're going to go back and watch it. And honestly, what we watched of this presentation was actually kind of cool. Like, it was good. Well, when I say kind of cool, it's like it's socialists saying the quiet part out loud, which is what we really like, you know, more than anything else. And so because they've now posted the full video, we're going to go back and watch it, and that's going to be the way it goes. Screaming and laughing, listening to this rant. Yeah. Yep. Anyone that upsets me is now going into the woods, and that's just going to be the way it is. So that's what we're doing today, guys. Hey, if this is your first time watching socialism with me, please let us know in the chat. If you're like relatively new, let us know. We do love new people, but there is usually a learning curve to watching socialism with us, and we just want to make sure we're helping you to understand what's actually going on. The reason that we watch socialism on this channel is because it is the very best way to understand what the far left is actually doing that is hinged into reality. Don't listen to right-wing media. Don't listen to right-wing pundits. Most of the time, they have no idea any of this stuff is going on. They don't pay attention to any of it. Therefore, they're not reporting on it. This is stuff that usually you only find here. I really think I'm the only person to actually cover this full event. If anyone else covered it, let me know. But I'm pretty sure I was the only person to actually cover the full thing. And so this is stuff you're only going to get here. We do breakdowns of the language. We explain what they're really talking about. I help you connect it back to what's going on in the world. What you see from right-wing pundits, from conservative pundits, is mostly clickbait and outrage porn that exists on TikTok that isn't really real, or things that are clipped out of context that they're actually much scarier when you look at them in the full context. You are seeing things that contribute to the conservative narrative. That's not what we do here. We watch what the real left is doing in the real world, and we talk about it because we think that the only way that you can defeat your enemy is if you understand your enemy, and you cannot understand your enemy if you don't listen to your enemy, and if you don't listen to your enemy, you are totally and completely fucked. Because they're going to win. They're going to beat you every single day. So the left has been winning for over 100 years in the United States. They've taken over all the major institutions. They've taken over the universities. They've taken over the K through 12 schools. They are responsible for every crazy idea that exists in the world today. And I have this crazy idea that no one really has a plan to beat them because things just keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So I'm going to go back to basics, and I'm going to listen to what they're saying, and I'm going to listen to what they're doing, and I'm going to listen to what they say to each other in their private spaces, because I don't think philosophy that was written by dead people 150 years ago is actually reflective of what's going on in the real world today. Call me crazy, but I don't think that something that was written 150 years ago by someone who's no longer alive in very different circumstances than what exists today is reflective of what's actually going on in the real world. It may influence what's going on in the real world. It may give us, insight into why they're doing what they're doing and the academic information that they've consumed. But what they teach at their conferences, what they teach at their events, this is how activists are being trained. This is where protesters are being trained. This is where they're communicating here. Suspend disbelief and resist the urge to make stupid comments and just listen. That's really good advice, guys, because, and listen, it's not your fault if you're new. It's not your fault if you're hearing some of these things for the first time. I really do mean that. I think it's so upsetting how much conservative media has lied to people. I think it's so upsetting how much disinformation there is out there. I think it's so upsetting. Hang on, is the stream back? Hang on. Okay, we're back. We're back. Just a blip. Don't worry about it. I think it's so upsetting how much people have been lied to in the real world, and I'm really sorry that your influencers have lied to you. I really, 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 really am. But if you're new here, then you need to suspend disbelief, and you need to accept that you need to unlearn every single thing that you need that you once learned. So, is there any update on that girl calling for terrorism FBI visit yet? What girl called for terrorism? Oh, at the conference? Yeah, I don't know. She actually just got named. She got named to some like 40 under 40 list or something like that. Stu Studio was telling me about it today. So no, she apparently just got an award. So not only is the FBI not following up on that, she got a fucking award. So that's fun. Guys, before we get into this, please make sure you are subscribed to my Substack. That is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. My Substack is where I do all my best breakdowns of what is going on the left. I try to teach you things that no one else is teaching you on the internet to try to show you what's really going on in the world. Hang on. Backyard Bane says, I'm new. I watched a little of your stuff. Do you have a couple questions? I haven't been able to find on your Substack. Backyard Bane, go ahead and ask those questions in the chat over on Rumble. I will see them and we'll do our very best to answer them or direct you to where you can get more information. Guys, how I fund my work is not 100%, but how I fund my work is through Substack. So the reason I'm able to spend time with you on streams breaking this stuff down, the reason I'm able to spend so much time writing stuff, the reason I'm able to spend so much time researching this stuff is that you guys fund the work I do on Substack. You do that by spending $8 a month for a monthly membership or $80 a year. In return, you get a variety of perks, including 2 Zoom calls with me every single week, including access to my supporter Discord where you get to be involved in all sorts of projects and stuff, including we do movie nights on Sundays too. There's writers group on Thursday. There's a writers group meeting starting in a little bit in the Discord if that's something that you want to do to produce a book, to create culture, to get published and stuff like that. There are actually people who will help you do that in my Discord if you want to. Lots of other stuff as well, but the best thing is you get to fund the work I'm doing because I'm 100% funded by you. I do not take political money from anyone. I do not tell any sort of political narrative. My only job is to show up and to show you the receipts and tell you the truth, and that's it. So if you can support the work I'm doing, carlin.substack.com, I would really appreciate it. I am trying to get to 100 new paying supporters by the end of the month. I know I actually got a couple more yesterday. I don't have a concrete number, so I didn't update the total, but I think we're probably like 22 or 23 out of 100 on the way there. So we're still looking for a whole bunch of people to sign up on the Substack. This does fund the work I'm doing. I cannot do this without you. If I don't have your support, I can't do this anymore. So I really do appreciate it, guys. And if you can support my work, I humbly ask that you do so. Thanks so much for that. How's my relationship with Elijah Schaefer? Good. I saw him reply to someone about Influenceable. He apparently works with them and a lot, so you might get a connect from him. I don't want to do Influenceable. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do Influenceable. But listen, man, like I'm cool with Elijah. I like Elijah a lot. By the way, Elijah's show yesterday was fire. Elijah did a whole rant about the whole Lauren Chen situation yesterday. It was fire. It was awesome. And you know what? And people are saying no Russian money, no Russian money. Well, the thing is, I'm just going to be blunt. I don't care that Lauren Chen took money from Russia. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I'm in 100% agreement with Elijah on this one. I don't care. I think that the reason they're going after Lauren Chen is Lauren Chen started deviating from the approved political narrative. And I was saying this was going to happen. I started saying back in when did we do that Twitter space? Back in January? I started saying back in January when Lauren Chen hosted that Twitter space, I was like, they're going to come after her. They're going to come after her. Something's going to happen. By the way, she just got fired from The Blaze because of everything that's going on. I told you guys The Blaze was going to fire her at some point. The Blaze, which stands behind people when the government comes after them, except if it's obviously a bullshit DOJ Russian misinformation campaign. Like, does anyone really buy this? No, they came after Lauren Chen because Lauren Chen deviated from the approved narrative. Lauren Chen was speaking out against what Israel's doing. Lauren Chen was not following the approved talking points. That's why they came after Lauren Chen. And I think everyone is smart enough to know that, and everyone should be smart enough to acknowledge it. The fact of the matter is that most influencers in the conservative space take money from Israel. They take money to not criticize Israel. They take money from Jewish people to not criticize Israel. That's just fact. If that's okay, then why are we so upset about Lauren Chen taking money from Russia? I don't give a fuck. Yup, the Blaze fired her. There was a news story about it on Twitter right before I went live. Alex Stein tried getting us all to sign up for the Blaze online, and I was like, why? Are you trying to get us on a list? Yeah, they are. Yeah. Yup, so the Blaze fired her. Yup, and now all conservatives, isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing to watch that all of a sudden, actually, let me just look this up. Hang on, I'll show you guys. The Blaze... Lauren Chen. See? Is that even Lauren Chen? Yeah, it is. Blaze fires contributor to alleged Russia operation. Oh, there it is on the Daily Wire. Daily Wire, the Blaze media cuts ties with Lauren Chen after DOJ connects her to Russian scheme. Can we all just take a moment to relish the fact that all of a sudden every conservative influencer seems to completely trust and support the Biden DOJ? All of a sudden, every conservative influencer says, yup, the DOJ would never lie to us. The DOJ would never pursue bullshit charges. The DOJ is 100% correct, and we should just trust the DOJ, guys. It's time to trust the government. The government would never wrong us. The government would never go after inconvenient people. This would never happen. Spreading $10 million to right-wing influencers and never asking a single one of them to say anything or change anything in exchange sounds like a DOJ setup to me. Some would say, well, no, human centipede, no. Lauren Chen does not get the benefit of the doubt. Because even though Lauren Chen is probably one of the most measured commentators on the internet, even though Lauren Chen is one of the adults in the room, has good relationships with everyone, never put a step out of line until she started questioning Israel and until she started quoting Nick Fuentes. Now Lauren Chen no longer gets the benefit of the doubt. Now, because Lauren Chen did not toe the line on Israel, Blaze is going to fire her. Daily Wire is going to go after her. All of these shill fucking pundits online are going to throw her under the bus. Who have I seen throw her under the bus? I've seen Ashley St. Clair throw her under the bus. I've seen Will Chamberlain throw her under the bus. I've seen Mike Cernovich throw her under the bus. I've seen James Lindsay. James Lindsay was one of the first to do it. James Lindsay was like, I knew Lauren Chen was a psyop. Blair White did it. Melissa Chen, who I like. Melissa Chen made it a point. I'm not associated with Lauren Chen. Dave Rubin did it. We all knew Dave Rubin was going to do it, though. Dave Rubin will say and do anything to save his own ass. All of a sudden, all these people are walking in lockstep with the Biden DOJ. Yup. Trump charges fake. Chen charges real. She should get a cozy channel. Nick should have. Well, maybe she might not want one, but she should get one for sure. It'd be interesting if Nick offered that. That would be funny. So, yep. I really do feel for Lauren Chen. I said this was gonna happen. People can go back and look. I've been predicting for months something was gonna happen to Lauren Chen. I said over and over and over again, I hope she's ready. And I felt really bad. It is, Kristen. It is wild to watch this happen in real time when we knew they were going to come after her eventually. And I'll bet you what, it would not surprise me to find out that there were people who were talking to the Department of Justice who should really not have been talking to the Department of Justice. What I mean by that is who went to the DOJ? Who went to the DOJ? Did someone in conservative media get an in at Lauren Chen's organization and all of a sudden that person became a whistleblower for the DOJ? How did that happen? When did they get hired? Did they get hired after Lauren Chen started criticizing Israel? To try to find dirt on her, any dirt that they could? How did they get those screenshots in the first place? Who actually did it? I bet you if you trace back the roots of who did it, I bet you it lands right in the middle of the conservative influencer sphere. They threw her under the bus because she didn't toe the line on Israel, and I think we're all adult enough to understand that, right? Anyway, that's a little bit of a sidetrack, but that did happen today. And we'll keep an eye on that. Lauren Chen definitely has my full support. That doesn't really mean anything. I'm like kind of irrelevant on the internet, and I actually like it that way, so I'm cool with that. But like, we're watching a witch hunt take place in real time because a person refused to use the talking points that they were supposed to use, and that's all it is. That's all it is. That's your conservative influencer set, guys. They will throw you under the bus in a second if you step off the reservation. They will destroy their own in a second. If you dare say that maybe Nick Fuentes has something good to say, they will throw you under the bus in a second. If you dare say maybe Israel shouldn't be bombing all those people in Gaza, maybe that shouldn't be happening. And we've seen this happen over and over and over and over and over again. And the only reason you guys don't see anything happening to me is really there's nothing that they can. First of all, I'm not relevant. I don't have a big enough platform. I don't have clout, and I'm fine with that. I don't actually really want that. But what can they really do to me? Because I'm funded by monthly and annual donations on my Substack. There's no fucking Russian backing me. There's no Qatar backing me. There's no Iran backing me. If anyone from Russia or Qatar or Iran wants to give me money, I'm not necessarily opposed to that idea. Just to be really clear, I'll register as a foreign agent and everything. But I'm just saying, like, I'm not actually opposed to the idea of getting funding, but I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I am actually opposed to that idea. The reason I do grassroots funding is because I don't want to be beholden to any political interest. There's nothing they can do to me that they haven't already done. I don't work for anyone. I don't report to anyone. I don't have freelance contracts with anyone. I 100% make my money from you guys. When you sign up for my Telegram, you buy merch from my merch store, you send in super chats, you make donations. That's where it comes from. So that's why you don't see me on any sort of list, because there really ain't anything they can do to me. Anyway. All the people attacking Lauren Chen and Martyr Maid are pro-Israel people. They're always pro-Israel people. They're all pro-Israel people. Because they're all getting paid money by Jews in Israel. They're shilling a narrative. They're getting paid to lie to you. So this is why we pay attention, guys. Pay attention. And someone said in my comments earlier today, they were like, how can we confirm everything that you've been saying? I'm like, use your brain. Pay attention. Look at all the people who all of a sudden are throwing Lauren Chen under the bus. Look at all the people who threw Candace Owens under the bus. And I say that as someone who doesn't like Candace Owens, but I didn't come at her when she got fired from the Daily Wire. I actually had her back when she got fired from the Daily Wire, even though I personally don't like her. Look at all the people who constantly attack Nick Fuentes, even though Nick Fuentes is actually giving a very measured response and commentary at the moment. Look at all the people who attack him constantly. Look at all the people who share clickbait about him. Just use your brains. Look at all the people who said college students shouldn't be allowed to protest because I disagree with what they're saying. Konstantin Kisin just wrote a hit piece on Tucker Carlson earlier today. Did you guys see this? Check this out. Hang on. Konstantin Kisin, I posted about this. Look at this. on his Substack right now. Why isn't this loading? Come on. Come on. Load. Konstantin Kisin on his Substack right now. Thou shalt not criticize the woke right. He's saying Tucker Carlson is the woke right because Tucker Carlson had a conversation with a guy about World War II that Konstantin Kisin didn't personally approve of. Every retardation has an equal and opposite retardation. The deranged worldview of the woke left, along with its disregard for the truth, hatred of the West, and falsification of history, is now being replicated on the right. Konstantin Kisin is the woke right. Now, there was a time when I had this confused. I actually wrote about the woke right in my book that I wrote in 2021, and I used to kind of have the same ideas as Konstantin Kisin. Now I see differently. We all make mistakes. We learn. We take in new information. We grow. Konstantin Kisin is literally, bro, you're looking at it right in front of you. You are literally looking at a conservative influencer try to struggle session someone. Snap out of it. This is woke. Just because they're on your team doesn't mean it's not woke. This is Konstantin Kisin literally trying to struggle session Tucker Carlson because Tucker Carlson dared to interview someone that Konstantin Kisin doesn't like. This is the definition of woke. If you think the left is the only side that struggle sessions people, I've got some news for you. They do this all the time. Do you guys remember when Just Pearly Things was on trigonometry and Konstantin Kisin in the middle of the interview was like, when you talked to Nick Fuentes, you didn't push back on him. How dare you speak to Nick Fuentes without pushing back on him? Konstantin Kisin considers himself to be the liberal values censorship arm of the fucking internet. Trigonometry is such bullshit. Where does their funding come from? Where does trigonometry's funding come from? Who's paying Konstantin Kisin's bills? Who benefits by Konstantin Kisin struggle sessioning Tucker Carlson for having an interview with someone that he didn't like? Why don't we ever ask any of these questions? Yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse knows exactly how this goes because Kyle Rittenhouse was also struggle sessioned by the woke right for saying that he didn't feel comfortable voting for Trump. It was a day-long struggle session. This is all they know how to do. So if you want to know who the good guys are, all you need to do is pay attention. That's it. And you need to be honest with yourself. And listen, man, I understand better than a lot of people that sometimes we have influencers that we really believe in. We have content creators on the internet that we learn from, that woke us up, that we trust, that we never dream would turn to the dark side. But I've been in this game long enough to know and to watch so many people that I did learn from back in 2019 when I was initially red pilling, back in 2020 when I left the left. I have seen so many of those people sell out and go over to the dark side, and it's disappointing every single time. And you don't want to admit that it's happening. You want to be like, no, this person used to be so good. I learned so much from this person. Why this can't be happening? Why would they do this? Must just be a misunderstanding. No, there's no misunderstanding. They sold out for money. They sold out for money. And that sucks. That sucks. It sucks when you have that realization. It sucks when you see this space for what it really is. It's all about entertainment. Are you not entertained? That's all these people want to do. They're entertaining you and telling you what you want to hear, so you give them money. And when someone gets in the way of them entertaining you and them making money, they will struggle session that person. They will defame that person. They will smear that person. They will cancel that person. They will do whatever they need to do in order to get you to completely disavow that person, stop listening to anything that person says or does, because chances are that person knows what's up and that person's telling the truth and that person's fucking real and that person's going to tell you all the bullshit that goes on behind the scenes. You never need to take my word for this. Just watch what's happening right in front of you, because they do it out in the open. Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? We are watching Socialism today. We're not going to do any more ranting from Carlin today. We're watching Socialism today. If this is your first time watching Socialism with me, welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me see. Backyard Bane says, thank you. Have you watched Mickey Willis's Plandemic 3? Nope, and I will not watch it. I will not watch propaganda. Sorry. If you want me to look at things, give me primary source evidence, not propaganda. I'm really sorry. I'm not watching any Plandemic movie. I'm really sorry. That's not going to happen. I don't have the time for it. I don't have the inclination for it. What we're watching today is from the Socialism conference from this past weekend. We're watching it today because the live stream went down over the weekend, but now we have access to the video. It is called The Genocidal Returns of Lesser Evilism, the U.S. Elections and Leftist Strategy, and we're going to see what happened at the Socialism conference. Guys, please make sure you mount the like button for me. Per usual, there is a shocking disparity between the number of people watching right now and the number of people who have mounted the like button. If you don't feel like mounting the like button, you can put your arm around the like button. You can softly caress the like button. You can high five the like button. You can give the like button a kiss on the cheek. You can give the like button a slap on the ass. You can do whatever you want to the like button. You can be as debaucherous and dirty as you want with the like button. Just do something to the like button, because that lets YouTube know to actually recommend my content to more people. Let us know what you've done to the like button in the chat if you feel so inclined. Let's get this party started.
Of Socialism 2024. All right, I hope folks are fired up and having a good time. One quick note before we get started. This session is going to be live streamed, including the discussion portion once we get to that. So that's just a heads up in case that's an issue for anyone, or just in case, so people are aware. My name is Haley Pessin. I am a member of the Tempest Collective. I use she, they pronouns. Tempest is the sponsor of this session. We're a revolutionary socialist organizing project. The title of this session is The Genocidal Return of Lesser Evilism, the U.S. Elections and Left Strategy. So if you're joining us with the live stream, hi, thank you for joining. And for our in-person audience, I'll let folks know how the discussion works once we get to that. Before I introduce our speakers, I'm just going to do some really quick housekeeping. At the Socialism conference, all participants play a role in keeping the conference safe and making sure that folks feel supported and comfortable over the weekend. Toward that end, I'm sharing a few important reminders. First, remember that conference attendees are required to wear N95 or KN95 masks while indoors in conference spaces. Speakers from the front of sessions may remove their masks in order to deliver their presentations, but only while actively speaking. And audience members are still required to wear masks even when asking questions or making comments. Second, please make sure to wear your conference badge throughout the weekend and respect the badge checkers at the door of meeting rooms. They're part of our community safety plans, and they're here to support a safe conference. Third, please keep in mind that the Socialism Conference aims to be a space that encourages genuine learning, discussion, and debate among folks from across the left. We ask that all participants help us to foster a culture where folks feel comfortable expressing questions and sharing different points of view. All participants should also keep in mind that the conference is a relatively public space, and take that into account when you decide what to share in your contributions during sessions. Okay, so with that.
Yes, masks are really required at the conference, and if you're wondering why that is, there's actually a clip on my YouTube channel from this past weekend explaining it. I also did post an article on my Substack also explaining it. No, they don't need to show ID, they just need to have the badge that they picked up at registration. There is a reason they require masks, and it's not to hide their identity.
Without further ado, let me introduce our speakers, who are going to speak for about 15 minutes each, give or take, and then we'll open the floor for discussion. So our first speaker is going to be Natalia in the center here. Natalia is, Tylam is an activist based in New York City and is a founding member of the Tempest Collective. You can read her recent articles on socialist strategy in Tempest at our website and in New Politics.
By the way, the Tempest Collective is a collective that we've covered before. They are a radical. They're extremely far left. They are a radical revolutionary organizing group. And basically, the Tempest Collective. It's kind of funny that they're the ones speaking about the election, because the Tempest Collective actually has in their founding documents that they do not believe that that they will achieve their glorious revolution through political means. So they usually don't even engage in electoral politics. That's actually pretty typical of far left radical socialists. That's not to say that they won't if they can get someone elected. It's not to say that they won't try, right? If they can get something, they will. But for the most part, real far leftists do not believe in the political process. They do not believe they will win via electoral means. They're going to try to violently overthrow the government someday, and these are, I promise you, going to be some of the people involved in it. Actually, this woman right here, I actually covered her last year from the Socialism Conference. This is Christian Godfrey, and I encountered her last year. Let me just show you real quick. I was surprised to see her. Okay, not really. But if you go to How to Speak Socialist on my Substack, I went undercover at this conference last year and I secretly recorded a bunch of people. And Kristen Godfrey was one of the people I secretly recorded. There she is. When I recorded Kristen Godfrey, I don't know if she still works there, but when I recorded her at the Socialism 2023 conference, she worked at the University of Arizona, and she got up in a Q&A, and she said, "I'm with the Tempest Collective, what?" And she actually brought students from the University of Arizona to the Socialism Conference last year. You can hear the, actually, we'll just play, you know what, we'll just play the sound. But she said flat out, "We teach a Marxist-based queer liberation class to queer and trans students at the University of Arizona." She was the director of LGBTQ plus affairs at the University of Arizona. Let's just play the, let's play the clip real quick. This is from my undercover work last year at Socialism 2023.
Next comrade, followed by the comrade with the black mask, followed by the comrade who's helping with ticket checks.
Hi comrades, great talk. Kristen, live in Tucson, in Tempest Collective. I wanted to share like a personal experience I'm experiencing at the University of Arizona. And then I just have a couple questions that are like, I guess a similar question as the comrade in Miami, like how to protect teachers, and just thinking through like what protection looks like in strikes. But me and my coworker, I don't think they're here. We teach a Marxist-based queer liberation class for queer and trans students at the UA. One of the students who took it is in the room. Hi, Annie. Annie's always yelling at somebody on campus, so I think the class but yeah, so we have this beautiful class. I'm also the director of the LGBTQ Center at the University of Arizona, so it's attached to the center. And because we're teaching this class, Students for Justice in Palestine students have been using the LGBTQ Center to hold meetings, to stash their stuff there. Israeli students found out, and there was a lot of violence in the space going up to Palestinian students saying they don't want them there. And so because of this class that we're teaching, Hillel reached out to my boss and said that I was anti-Semitic. And so the LGBTQ Center is housed in the Office of Work and Inclusion. But even with that, we have limited, no one's protecting me in the Diversity and Inclusion Office, right?
So you know what's interesting about that? It's not just that Kristen Godfrey works at the University of Arizona teaching a queer-based Marxist solidarity and liberation class at the University of Arizona, funded by the taxpayers in Arizona. It's not just that Kristen Godfrey openly admitted that she brought a University of Arizona student to the Socialism 2023 conference in Chicago. What was most interesting to me about that clip is she was talking about how Palestinian students used to hang out in her office at the LGBTQ plus affairs office, and the Palestinian students would kind of use her office, and the Israeli students came to her office to start violence against the Palestinian students. Now, we don't know what she means in terms of starting violence, but I just want to point out, this was before October 7th. This was September, around September 1st of last year. This was last September. So back then, Kristen Godfrey, taxpayer-funded employee, is shilling this story that Israeli students are showing up at the LGBTQ's affairs office specifically to enact violence against Palestinian students. It's a little weird, isn't it? Anyway, let's go back to the presentation. We'll hear what Kristen had to say this year.
And Natalia's latest article, The Lesser Evil is Still Less Evil, is in this issue of New Politics. Next, we have Kristen Godfrey. Kristen Godfrey is a revolutionary socialist, community organizer, and social worker living in Tucson on stolen Tohono O'odham and Yom ancestral and traditional lands. They are a member of the Tempest Collective.
Kristen is so socialist that she literally has a land blessing in her bio. Really think about that. She's so socialist that she literally has a land blessing in her official bio.
And finally, we have Brian Bean. Brian Bean is a socialist organizer and agitator based in Chicago, a member of the Tempest Collective, a part of the Rampant Magazine editorial collective, and an editor and contributor to the book Palestine, A Socialist Introduction from Haymarket Books. That right here is available in the Haymarket Books room, and their next book, Their End is Our Beginning, Cops, Capitalism, and Abolition will be our next, will be out next year from Haymarket Books. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Natalia to kick us off.
All right, it's good to be here with everybody. There's nothing that could possibly concentrate the mind more than politically sanctioned mass murder. Both the Democrats and the Republicans are active, willing participants in genocide as we speak. And this is maybe the sharpest example that we've had to draw on about the consequences of lesser evilism in a generation. This is because there is no possible concession that can or will be made to either party's base support for US imperialism. It is essential and foundational to the ruling class strategy of maintaining US interests in the global world order. There's a generation now that is learning the lesson of what US imperialism is and what it's capable of. In the context of genocide, the two parties' commitment to imperialism makes the terms of the lesser evil debate clear. If we are serious about changing this choice and building a new option, one that can contribute to the liberation of Palestine instead of funding its destruction, we have to be clear that the electoral choice is between two evils. This requires us to clearly explain that only overcoming the rule of capital and the rule of imperialism will allow us to address the persistence of the unfathomable evil that morphs and spreads. This is first and foremost a question for us right now about how we build the left. When we talk about genocide and the terrifying rise of the authoritarian right, of course, moral and ethical outrage necessarily follows. But this on its own will not sustain our movements, and more importantly, will not on its own bring the change that we need. The Democrats have shown in no uncertain terms over the last 329 days, whatever tactical maneuvers to try to convince us otherwise, that they are completely immune to moral outrage. It's the strategic question, the question of how we move the needle on our demands and towards our goals as socialists that we're here to talk about today. I'm going to touch on the dynamics of the 2024 election and a strategy for socialists. Kristen's going to talk about the impact lesser evilism has on our social.
I really hurt Ian Malcolm's feelings. He keeps posting about me. He can cope all the fuck he wants about me. I really don't care. I don't appreciate being set up in a Twitter space. I think that is just like, it's so ridiculous. And being set up because they're pissed off that I support Nick Fuentes, which is exactly what I think happened. Well, exactly. He's never going to engage in any of my points. And this is exactly why. It's like This is so predictable, though. It's like he is not capable. He is not capable of engaging with the actual points that I'm making. All he's capable of doing is reeing and hysteria. It's almost like Ian Malcolm is a leftist fucking woman. It's so disappointing. I really had such high hopes for that presentation. But you know what? He can keep complaining all he wants. I don't care, man. I've already blocked him. I blocked Zach. I don't intend to interact with them anymore. I will block anyone from their audience that comes into my feed and tries to cause problems. It's not worth it. It's fake and gay. Fake and gay. Exactly. You know, you show up and you give someone the benefit of the doubt, and I showed up in good faith. I think anyone that listens to the first part of that conversation knows I showed up in good faith. And how do I get thanked for it? By being thrown under the fucking bus. By being ambushed. By being ridiculed. By being insulted. By having no one actually listen to the points I was making. No one actually engaging with the content I was making. By being lied about. By being smeared. By having them literally spread a Jewish fucking smear campaign against me. While claiming that I'm really the Jew in the situation. Yeah, okay. Okay, Ian Malcolm can keep crying all he wants. I really don't care.
Social movements, and Brian's going to talk about political horizons and where we're going. And then we'll have a chance to all participate in a strategic discussion together in the room.
Yeah, I think this
so
is
when
probably
we talk
true.
about general elections in the United States, we need to see them and recognize them for what they are. The constitutional structure in the US was always set up to defend minority and capital rule. At the founding of the US, this of course meant the rule of slavery.
Hang on. I have a feeling she's about to lay out the quiet part for us. Now, remember that far left socialists believe the Constitution should be abolished. So they're not in favor of the Constitution. They're not in favor of the government. They want to overthrow the government. They want to abolish the Constitution. They want to get rid of the Electoral College. They want to abolish the Supreme Court. They want to abolish the entire court system or change it into something that's more of like a mediating system when two parties have a dispute, but they don't want it to exist as it does now. They want to abolish the United States Senate. They're okay with something that that resembles the House of Representatives, but it wouldn't be an exact translation from the House of Representatives. It would be a little bit different. They literally want to raise the red flag of communism above the White House. I don't actually think that they want to have a president. I don't actually think they want that. So I guess I'm just laying this groundwork so people know that these people don't want our current system to exist. And you really need to wrap your head around that. Nothing that exists in our current system is going to continue to exist in their Marxist utopia.
Elections in the United States, we need to see them and recognize them for what they are. The constitutional structure in the US was always set up to defend minority and capital rule. At the founding of the US, this of course meant the rule of slavery. Even after the Civil War, despite monumental struggle that transformed aspects of the political order, central elements of the system remained in place. The core of the US constitutional system remains set up to defend minority and property interests, premised on a racial regime of capital in the United States. And this is still true today.
The Constitution of the United States was set up to defend propertied interests based on the racial regime of capital in the United States. Let's listen to that again. I think I quoted that correctly. This is important. This is why whiteness means capitalism.
After the Civil War, despite monumental struggle that transformed aspects of the political order, central elements of the system remained in place. The core of the US constitutional system remains set up to defend minority and property interests.
The core of the US system remains set up to defend minority and property interests. Capitalism is defined as private property. Anytime you hear them talking about private property, they're talking about capitalism.
Premised on a racial regime of capital in the United States.
Premised on a racial regime of capital in the United States. What is she referring to? The Constitution is set up to defend property interests premised on a racial regime of capital in the United States. What is she referring to? Yup, this is true. It's the 1619 Project applied to the Constitution, but what is she specifically referring to? Slave owners. Slavery. She's referring to slavery. That's what she means. White property owners owning black slaves. Racial regime being white people owning black people as private property. It's not just white people. That's not what she's talking about. The reason we know she's not talking about white people is she's talking about the property interests. The property interests in this case are black slaves. Black slaves are the property. White people are the private property owners. Black slaves are the property. And what she's really getting at is this is the basis of what systemic racism is. Systemic racism is the system that upholds racism. The system in this case is the regime of capital in the United States. Capitalism. The reason whiteness means capitalism is that it is the far left's argument, and you don't have to agree with it, but arguing with this is not actually going to change their opinion. See, this is part of why that Twitter space went so wrong last night, is the dissident right wing is absolutely fucking incapable of acknowledging that their definition of whiteness is not the same definition the left has of whiteness. Just because the dissident right wing is obsessed with white people does not mean that when the left says whiteness, they mean white people. They don't. They mean the propertied interests premised on a racial regime of capital in the United States. That means capitalism. There was a whole Red May video about the Constitution. We'll have to check that out. I think, did we watch part of that? I feel like we may have watched part of that. So what that means, nope, no one's saying that. You're not listening. You're not listening. All private property ownership is wrong in their eyes. They don't want any private property ownership. It would not be acceptable private property ownership if it was property owned by a black person. Do you know how I know? Because the Los Angeles Times called Larry Elder the black face of white supremacy. The Washington Post and NPR have articles about multiracial whiteness. They consider Kanye West to be a white supremacist. They consider Jay-Z to be a white supremacist. They consider Candace Owens to be a white supremacist. It is not more preferable for a black person to own property than it is for a white person to own property, because their argument is not with what is the skin color of the owner. Their argument is with the ownership of private property at all. The left believes that capitalism, which is defined as private property ownership, created slavery in the United States, which is the ownership of black slaves by white private property owners. That system of slavery, which was created by capitalism, is upheld in systemic racism or institutional racism. The system that upholds racism, the institution that upholds racism, that system, that institution is capitalism. If we abolish capitalism, we will abolish racism. That is what they believe. It's never been about skin color for the left. It's about skin color for the dissident right, but it has never been about skin color for the left. It has always been about the abolition of capitalism, and that is it. Let's listen again.
Transformed aspects of the political order, central elements of the system remained in place. The core of the U.S. constitutional system remains set up to defend minority and property interests, premised on a racial regime of capital in the United States. And this is still true today in ways that are not hard to identify and see. This is a system that requires hundreds.
This is still true today in ways that are not hard to identify and see. Does slavery still exist in the United States today? Yes or no? She said this still exists today. This is still true in ways that are not hard to see.
To identify and see.
This is still true today in ways that are not hard to identify and see. Does slavery still exist in the United States? No. The answer is no. Where can you buy people as slaves in the United States, Daniel? No. 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 Okay, someone who's saying that yes, slavery still exists. No, no, nope, nope, wrong, nope. No, she's not. Nope. No, she's not. No, she's not. Nope. Have we descent, guys, please, please. I can't fucking take it. I cannot fucking take descending into the land of retardia. Can everyone pull themselves out of the land of retardia, please? Where can you in the United States today buy a human being? Yes or no? Can you buy a human being in the United States? That is not what we're talking about. That is not the argument. Can you buy a human being in the United States, yes or no? Please do not go fucking retarded on me. Not after the night I had last night. She is not talking about human trafficking. So, now let's try again. Does slavery still exist in the United States? Yes or no? Not what we're talking about right now. Does slavery still exist in the United States? Yes or no? And I don't give a flying fuck what your feelings about human trafficking are. If anyone answers yes, you're going in a timeout because you're just not smart enough to talk right now. Honest to God, if you answer yes that you can still buy a human being in the United States as a legally supported means, then you're not smart enough to talk in my chat right now and you're going to be silenced. I'm going to fucking gag you. We are not having retarded shit in my chat today. People are not private property in this country. Slavery does not exist in the United States today. Slavery does not exist in the United States today. Does everyone understand, or do I need to say this 10 or 12 more times? So then, if slavery does not exist in the United States today, then why is she saying, in reference to slavery, because that is what she was talking about, the ownership of black slaves by white property owners, that is what is being discussed. No one cares about your fucking feelings about human trafficking. That is not what we're talking about. Anyone who says capitalism and slavery is getting put in a timeout because you're obviously not listening. The only exception to this is Azurwing because he's a king of the chat and he can't be put in timeout. If we all agree that slavery does not currently exist in the United States, I'm just keep putting people in a timeout because people just keep being retarded. Then what does she mean when she says this is still true today in ways that are not hard to identify? What is she referring to? What is still true today? What is still true today? Slavery doesn't currently exist in the United States. So what is she saying is still true today? There's only one person who's gotten it right so far. Okay, I'll roll back the clip. We'll listen again.
Remained in place. The core of the U.S. constitutional system remains set up to defend minority and property interests, premised on a racial regime of capital in the United States. And this is still true today in ways that are not hard to identify and see.
As a hint, I literally just explained this. So there should be absolutely no excuse for people who aren't getting the answer to this. I literally just explained this. Private property ownership is not the answer. I literally just explained this. What is still true today in ways that are not hard to identify and see? I literally use the specific terms repeatedly. One person in the chat has gotten it right so far. I'll tell you who that person is in a second. But one of you has been listening. The rest of you have not been listening. She's talking about systemic racism. That's what she's talking about. Systemic racism is what she's referring to. Systemic racism is what is easy to see and identify today, that still exists today. Because systemic racism will always exist as long as capitalism exists. Capitalism is defined as private property ownership. Capitalism created slavery in the United States. The outcome of slavery is systemic racism or institutional racism, which still exists today because they're not talking about skin color. They're talking about the system that upholds capitalism, or that upholds racism. The system that upholds racism. The institution that upholds racism. That is what they're observing and identifying in the world today. That system is not white skin color. That system is private property ownership, otherwise known as capitalism. That's what that means. Azerwing, come on. Come on. Thank you, Azerwing. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for the support. The best. I love it when people pay to be retards in my chat. I love you, Azerwing, but you definitely had a moment there. But I love you, and I'm telling you, you had a retard moment because I care about you and I want you to learn. Does everyone understand? I know this is complicated, but does everyone understand? This is the most complicated concept you will wrap your head around in terms of leftist language, guys. If you can wrap your head around this, you will understand everything else easily. Let's listen one more time. She is referring to slavery, and then she's going to say we can still observe the impacts of slavery today in the form of systemic racism, essentially. One more time.
And the rule of slavery. Even after the Civil War, despite monumental struggle that transformed aspects of the political order, central elements of the system remained in place. The core of the U.S. constitutional system remains set up to defend minority and property interests, premised on a racial regime of capital in the United States. And this is still true today in ways that are not hard to identify and see. This is a system that requires...
Yep. Let's hear more about the system, systemic racism, the system. Milo says, racism was created by slavery, which was created by capitalism. Racism will not be eliminated until capitalism is eliminated. That's correct, guys. As long as you always remember that the core thing that the left cares about is abolishing capitalism in literally every circumstance. When they're talking about race, they're talking about abolishing capitalism. When they're talking about gender, they're talking about abolishing capitalism. When they're talking about parental rights, they're talking about abolishing capitalism. When they're talking about trans and kids, they're talking about abolishing capitalism. When they're talking about abortion, reproductive justice, on demand, free, up until birth, they're talking about abolishing capitalism. When they're talking about environmental justice, they're talking about capitalism. When they're talking about universal health care, they're talking about abolishing capitalism. When they're talking about public schooling, public education, they're talking about abolishing capitalism. Every single thing they do can be traced back to them wanting to abolish capitalism, and then they go about it in a million different ways. They have a million different methods in which they're attacking capitalism. The reason that they use different words to refer to different aspects that all mean capitalism is because they are attacking capitalism in a million different ways from a million different directions. This, by the way, is the smart way to go about it. They're not just going right at the problem and hitting it right in the face. They're going from the back, they're going from the side, they're going from the top, they're going from the bottom, they're going from a diagonal, they've got a sniper on the roof over here. They're going at it in every direction that they can possibly go at it. That's why they have so many different words that all at the end of the day mean capitalism. But if you can always remember that the goal is always and forever to abolish capitalism, you just work your way back from there. How is what they're talking about related to private property ownership? How is what they're talking about related to the system, abolishing and overturning the system? That's what they want to do. Exactly. Any vehicle they get into moves them forward. And it's a fucking Hydra. That's what it is. If you cut off one head, guess what? Not only will that head probably grow back, but you've already got 15 other fucking heads. So you may have cut off one head, but they'll just go to another head, or any number of the other heads. This is why this is such a complicated problem to solve, because we're literally fighting battles on an infinite number of fronts that people don't understand, that it is all connected through one thing. And that one thing is the abolition of capitalism, which is specifically defined as private property ownership. Private property being your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own an apartment rental that you rent out as a landlord, your ability to own a business, no matter if it's a small business or a large business, your intellectual property, your parental rights, your individual liberties. All of those are defined as private property. They want to abolish all those things when they abolish capitalism, when they abolish private property. It all goes back to that. Everything. There is not a single thing the left does that does not go back to that. And if people can start to wrap their head around that, then this starts to become more clear. Thanks, Nick, for the super chat. I really do appreciate it.
Hundreds of millions of dollars just to participate in electoral politics. That is the cost of entry into the game. It's a system that is consciously set up to constrain and narrow the realm of the possible, as we saw so clearly on display at the Democratic National Convention last week. The celebrations of law and order, the celebrations of Zionism, the celebrations of US militarism, the celebrations of so-called border security, these are beyond questioning inside the political class of this country, and these norms are repeatedly shoved down our throats. Think about how limiting that is. And think about what that conditions us to think of as political participation. This structural limitation needs to be named and explained, and it needs to guide our strategy for how we overcome it. The audience for this strategy is not just a few thousand.
Hang on. The structural limitation is what needs to be overcome. Think of as political participation this structure. Okay, let me listen to this one more time. Again, pay attention.
The celebrations of so-called border security, these are beyond questioning inside the political class of this country, and these norms are repeatedly shoved down our throats. Think about how limiting that is. And think about what that conditions us to think of as political participation. This structural limitation needs to be named and explained, and it needs to guide our strategy for how we overcome it.
The structural limitation is capitalism.
The audience for this strategy is not just a few thousand self-proclaimed socialists, though obviously we're a part of it, but it's also about tens of thousands of people who in the near and medium term can be open to the arguments about an alternative, given how deep the social political crisis and the imperial catastrophe that we face is. This includes, very importantly, the next layer of people that we want to reach and integrate as the Palestine movement. Lesser evilism is a concession to a system that tells us over and over again that we are only allowed to choose the one of the two evils, and where sections of the left repeatedly co-sign that limited choice. On some level, this dynamic of the two evils has always been a feature of the political system in this country, but especially since the rise of US imperial hegemony after World War II. The argument is old, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing unique taking place. This election in 2024 isn't Clinton versus Bush Sr. It's not Gore versus W. Bush or Obama versus Dole. And for those who weren't politically active in those days, those were elections where really there was no daylight that could really be found between those two candidates. Kamala Harris has pulled together a rightward-moving coalition. In 2020, following the unprecedented demonstrations after the murder of George Floyd, she couldn't speak to her self-proclaimed strength as a prosecutor and a centrist, law and order-focused candidate. But 2024 is her moment to shine, apparently, as she outdoes Trump in her excitement for the border wall and the military and confirms her unwavering commitment to Israel. The Democrats continue to creep right.
Listen to that. Think about all of the conservative pundits who have told you up and down, Kamala Harris is a communist, Kamala Harris is a socialist, Kamala Harris is a communist, Kamala Harris is ushering in Marxism. Even fucking Elon Musk is tweeting about Kamala Harris being a communist. Donald Trump is declaring that he'll stop Marxism, we swear, when he's elected over Kamala Harris. Every major conservative influencer is taking this line that Kamala Harris is a communist. James Lindsay is going, pinky swear, bro, I promise she's a communist. At the Socialism conference, the preeminent conference for far-left activism in this country, where you have the most committed real socialists, real communists, people who are leaders in the far left. They are ragging on Kamala Harris and declaring her basically worse than Trump. Now, they don't like Trump either. They're not going to vote for Trump either. But they're sure as shit not going to support Kamala Harris. If Kamala Harris was really a communist, then why would the real socialists, the real communists, be shitting on her at their preeminent conference weeks before an election? That doesn't make any sense. If Kamala Harris was actually the key to ushering in Marxism and socialism in this country, then there would be no one cheering louder for her than these people. These people very literally dedicate their lives to far-left activism. Don't you think these people should be thrilled that Kamala Harris is running if Kamala Harris is indeed a communist? But they aren't. Not only aren't they thrilled, they protested her the entire DNC. And then the week after the DNC, in exactly the same city in Chicago, they're talking about how much they hate her. Listen again.
Kamala Harris has pulled together a rightward-moving coalition. In 2020, following the unprecedented demonstrations after the murder of George Floyd, she couldn't speak to her self-proclaimed strength as a prosecutor and a centrist, law and order-focused candidate. But 2024 is her moment to shine, apparently, as she outdoes Trump in her excitement for the border wall and the military and confirms her unwavering commitment to Israel. The Democrats continue to creep right, but unlike in the early 2000s, the Republican Party, led by Trump, have morphed into something far more grotesque. Trump has built a coalition of the long-existing core of U.S. racism, alongside a coalition that includes people from the working class and oppressed who face socio-political crises. From the left, the new socialist movement arguably reached its 21st century peak between 2012 and 2016, but has now been brought by its foremost leaders firmly and definitively back into unconditional support for the Democratic Party and the lesser evilism that comes with it. So what this means is that Trump now operates with no left alternative on offer in political discourse. In a dynamic not unique to the US, Trump has transformed the GOP. Once the team A of big business and the national security establishment, now a populist party of racist, sexist, xenophobic, violent reaction. In this scenario, the Democrats are the most ardent neoliberal defenders of the state that exists to protect minority rule. So they are the establishment and the rule and order purveyors that the capitalist class trusts with their business interests. Therefore, the Democrats are an ineffective opposition to the right. As the party representing stability and correctly seen as the party of the status quo,
the Democrats are ineffective opposition for the right and represent the status quo. Guys, these people don't want the status quo. These people want the radical revolutionary overthrow of the United States government. They're not Democrats. They hate the Democrats.
Have no legitimacy to pose as the alternative to this social crisis. This is the party that has overseen the largest upward wealth redistribution to the 1% in US history under Obama and afterwards. This is the party that facilitated and ensured the loss of abortion rights, conceded to the establishment and maintenance of the drug war and the growing carceral state, and I could go on. This could be a multi-hour talk. Our collective inability to break out of this conundrum, manifest in the choice of these two evils, has brought us here. This is not going to get better. It will only get worse until we crack this nut. And that's why we need to talk about strategy. Maybe it's counterintuitive, but our argument today against lesser evilism is not about 30 seconds in a ballot box or hard choices that individuals make in a system where they have nowhere to go. We understand because we have family members and coworkers and people in our community who will vote for Harris out of fear. We don't agree with that choice, but we understand where it's coming from. Our argument is not—
They don't agree with voting for Harris, especially if you're only doing it because you're afraid Donald Trump is going to be elected. They are specifically arguing against that.
Not aimed at those individuals. It's directed to the parts of the socialist left, labor unions, and social movements who are opting to spend our collective resources and time and energy to support an evil, lesser or otherwise.
They're pissed off at the unions supporting her.
Unacceptable that what it means to be an independent activist in New York City is scrambling around trying to find somewhere we can afford to rent to organize and discuss politics where the forces that should be giving us material support are adding to the $500 million that Harris raised in 1 month. I'm told repeatedly that we can do both things. That we can call for a vote, but also keep organizing the opposition.
This is a conference where they're sharing their ideas. She is supposed to be talking. What you are supposed to be doing is listening to what she's saying. If you have questions about what she's saying because you don't understand it, you are welcome to ask those questions in the chat. But saying, oh my God, I can't believe that she's talking, oh my God. She's literally giving a speech at a conference, bro. She's laying out their strategy for you. She's telling you how the far left is going to approach this election. What are you even doing here if you're not trying to listen to that and learn something? We want them talking. When they talk, they tell us what they're doing.
This is our only choice. It's necessary, but it doesn't mean that there aren't other things we can do, we're told.
Is this nuclear?
But this is the opposite of what I've seen
Nuclear,
year
is
after
this
year
you?
in our communities and our movements and our workplaces. It is never just about one vote on one day. It is always about more. Campaigning, donations, waffling on demands, because this person will be more likely to listen to us in office than the other person. But I want to say that history has largely disproven the idea that Democrats are under greater influence to our demands based on how much resources we devote to them in a campaign.
Oh, Democrats don't bend to their
extent
demands.
that they
I
can
see.
be influenced, we are better served organizing for what we demand to bring those things to bear. To say we can do both, to say that we can give tens of millions of dollars and our organizing and political attention and support to the Democrats while simultaneously organizing our opposition, most importantly to imperialism, is to be blind to the balance of forces.
Imperialism
and
means
how
capitalism.
enthralled wide sections of our social movements and community organizations and media, and especially trade unions, are to the Democratic Party. If we can do both, why were the trade union leaders almost entirely inside the Democratic National Convention and not outside with rank and file activists who donated their time and resources?
They're pissed off at the unions for supporting Kamala Harris because the unions are socialists. The unions are run by socialists. They believe that the union should have been protesting Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris is not socialist enough.
And volunteered to build a contingent for Palestine outside. Of course, There's one notable trade union leader who was at the Republican National Convention instead, but I don't think that's the both things at once that we're talking about today.
Oh. Who
To
called
seed
that when
ground
that happened?
and give the
Me.
lesser evil oxygen creates conditions under which organizers lose sight of the fact that we are dealing with an evil at all. That's how you get Sanders and AOC now cheerleading this capitalist party.
That's how you get Sanders and AOC cheerleading the capitalist Democrats. Real socialists hate AOC and they hate Bernie Sanders because they believe that AOC and Bernie Sanders have capitulated to capitalism. They believe that AOC and Bernie Sanders are traitors to the cause. Again. Well, union members might be capitalists, but all unions are run by socialists. All unions are socialist recruiting mechanisms. Just because you're in a union, that doesn't mean you're a socialist. A lot of people are forced to be in unions that they don't necessarily want to be in. But all unions, all of them, are socialist recruiting mechanisms. We know this because the socialists tell us they're recruiting in the unions. They flat out they tell us it's part of their organizing strategy. They go into workplaces through the unions.
Ground and give the lesser evil oxygen creates conditions under which organizers lose sight of the fact that we are dealing with an evil at all. That's how you get Sanders and AOC now cheerleading this capitalist party. This support and those resources are what allow the Democratic Party ticket to be painted as some empty vessel, all things to all people, wrongfully assumed to carry our hopes and dreams. I've been coming to this conference for a long time. The space that it provides for strategic debate is precious. We should do everything we can to cultivate it. This is probably the largest conference that the conference has ever had, maybe 2,000, 2,500 people. I don't know the exact numbers. Incredible. But it also.
There were not 2,000 people at the conference last year. I'll tell you that. There were maybe 500 or 600 people at the conference last year. There were absolutely not 2,000 people at the Socialism conference last year. 2,000 people? Are you shitting me? You know, that makes sense. They had a huge schedule this year. They had a huge schedule. It looks like they're in a new conference space. This was not the conference space they were in last year. The walls are completely different than they were last year. 2,000 people. I swear to God, there were absolutely not 2,000 people there last year. 100% not.
Speaks to the reality of what our organized forces in the socialist left are in a country of 333 million people at current time. To have a strategy means to be cognizant of our numbers, our relative weight, and what next step we can take together towards our goals. Our resources, human and financial and political and moral, are precious. We will not at this moment win if we accept the terms of this rigged choice that's on offer.
Just to give some people a comparison, that's like roughly the size of CPAC. People want to say there are it's not times 10 CPAC. Like I've been to CPAC too. People want to say like this is the criticism that I get all the time. They say, Carlin, there aren't even there aren't even very many of these people, and you're just watching the most extreme people, and there aren't very many of them, and I don't know why you spend all your time watching these people because they're just like a really small number, and there aren't that many. CPAC, the big time conservative conference, gets a couple thousand conservatives to go to it. The Socialism 2024 conference apparently has basically the same number of people at the Socialism conference as they do at CPAC. Don't tell me these are just a fringe little minority group of people. Don't tell me that. Not when they're hosting conferences that are as big as CPAC. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Reinhardt. They don't have CPAC money. They don't. This is like a boot. Like, again, I've been to CPAC. I've seen the extravagance that goes on at CPAC. I've been to this. I was at this conference last year undercover. It's a basic setup. It's very basic. There aren't bells and whistles. There aren't like big displays. There's not a big convention hall with all sorts of stuff to do. There aren't big sponsors. It's basically a convention hall, and they get a podium, and they put a little sign on the podium, and they may have some video, but that's it. They bootstrap this conference.
We have to rebuild organization at every level. This is the most important thing we can do, to rebuild organizations of our class and our communities that are independent of that game and clear about what we are up against in the belly of this imperial beast. To build in solidarity with each other, with the people of Palestine, with open articulations of a perspective and a strategy. To gather as socialists and activists everywhere we are to concretely discuss how to build and protect our resources and our independence in all of our workplaces and neighborhoods and cities. The experience of the last 11 months is the best example of the concrete alternative to lesser evilism. The organizing at every level, in our communities, our trade unions, our campuses, in the face of unprecedented repression, did transform the political terrain, and not only in this country. It helped force Biden out of the race. It continues to call the question on the Democrats' role as the A-team of imperialism, and it's a beacon internationally. Can think about the reference point of students in Bangladesh who ousted a dictator being inspired by Palestine. Palestine has shown us how to fight and how many people are appalled at the political realities of the choices on offer. Our obligation is to draw the lessons from the last year and take the fight forward so that we can finally organize our way out of this impasse together. The stakes of this strategic debate are extremely, extremely high.
Literally, no one here hates Palestine. Literally, no one here has said they hate Palestine. And now you're going to go away because I don't think you have anything valuable to add here. Goodbye.
Thank you. That was Natalia, and here goes Kristen.
Thanks, y'all.
Hi, Kristen.
Okay,
Hi.
really thankful to be here. Good to see everybody. So Black August, for me, was a time to reflect on the Black radical tradition whose foundation is Black internationalism.
She said they,
Making
them, by
clear
the way,
Black
non-binary.
America's role in freeing Palestine. Our roots being planted in a historical and objective analysis. And
Pop quiz for the chat. Why does Black America have a role in freeing Palestine? Kristen just says that she's doing some deep reflection on Black America's role, Black America's role in freeing Palestine. Why is Kristen doing deep contemplation? Kristen, a radical revolutionary socialist who is non-binary, they, them. Why is Kristen doing contemplation on Black America's role in freeing Palestine? Does anyone know? It's the same reason why Queers for Palestine exists. Queers for Palestine exists for a very specific reason. Bought in with the gold star again because Black Americans and Palestinians are in the same struggle. They are in solidarity in the struggle against capitalism as the oppressed. That's why. The left views the Palestinians as a struggle against capitalism. Israel are the settler colonists. Settler colonists means capitalists. They mean the people that came in and stole the indigenous land and privatized it under the oppressive force of capitalism. That's how they view Israel. Israel is the capitalists, the bourgeois, the private property owners. Palestinians are the indigenous, the oppressed, the proletariats. The Palestinians are in a glorious uprising against the capitalist oppressors. Black Americans are the private property, the owned, the proletariat, the oppressed. They were owned as slaves under slavery. They were owned under whiteness. Whiteness means capitalism. Black Americans are in a glorious struggle against capitalism. Therefore, Black Americans, in the mind of Kristen, are in exactly the same struggle struggle, revolution as the Palestinians. And it's the same with queer. Queer is about annihilating capitalism. That's it. Black people must stand in solidarity because black people must be communists. Yup. Solidarity and struggle against the overthrow of capitalism because black America cannot be free from capitalism until everyone is free from capitalism, including Palestine, because they can't be free from capitalism until everyone is free. Exactly. Both Palestine and Black America were created and oppressed by the same system. That system is capitalism. We are not free until all are free. To be free, all must be free. This is why Queers for Palestine is a thing. They believe queer people are oppressed under capitalism as well. All forms of oppression, including Israel's oppression of Palestinians, are rooted in capitalism. Exactly. Because both Black Americans and Palestinians are fighting against capitalism. Exactly. Solidarity, both oppressed by capitalism. Palestine is systemically oppressed. Exactly. Exactly. Well done.
Our roots being planted in a historical and objective analysis, an analysis that illustrates years of Black and Palestinian solidarity, and a recognition that when the U.S. pays
Black
for
and
occupations
Palestinian
and genocide, Black, brown, and indigenous people's lives and conditions in the U.S. worsens. As Malcolm X explained, it is incorrect to classify the revolt of the Negro as simply a racial conflict of Black against white, or as purely an American problem. Rather, we are today seeing a global rebellion of the oppressed against the oppressor, the exploited against the exploiters.
We are seeing a global rebellion of the oppressed against the oppression, the exploited against the exploiters.
The history of the left movements and struggle in this country is formed by Black struggle. When Black struggle has called for the end of enslavement or Jim Crow or the end of policing, all workers question our imaginations and start to see how we are fucked over by racism. After George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were murdered following the onset of a daily pandemic we are still living through, workers around the world started to strike.
No, your answer is not more correct, Robert. Your answer is not correct at all. Either you're here to learn or you can go. You were given the answer 19 times over by people in the chat who have watched far more of this than you have. You either accept it or you go somewhere else to learn. There are rights and wrongs, guys. There are rights and wrongs. And if we're telling you that something means something, it's because we haven't just heard it once, we haven't just heard it twice. We've heard it over and 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 over again. From multiple different groups, from multiple different presenters. So your opinion, when it comes from an uneducated place, doesn't mean a whole lot to us. Either you are here to learn or you can leave. That doesn't fucking matter. That's not the point.
Connecting anti-Black racism to workplace exploitation. The history of Black struggle is a testament to how we can continue to build a movement that will free Palestine. But to get there, we have to steer away from campaigning for politicians and move to strategy, not looking to Harris for answers, but looking for the long-standing history of struggle and wins as proof that the lesser evilism argument disarms us and makes us forget the wins we come from.
She just said that basically they're not going to achieve their goals by campaigning for Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris isn't on their team. Kamala Harris isn't a communist. She's not a socialist. So why are we wasting time and money campaigning for Kamala Harris when we could just be campaigning for what we want? Kamala Harris doesn't support what we want, so we don't have to help her. We can do what we want instead. That's the argument that she's making. She's making the argument that we should opt out of electoral politics altogether because both of these parties suck and neither of them are going to do what we want them to do. So we should instead focus on achieving our goals in a different way that is separate from electoral politics. Does everyone understand that? Hey, thanks, Tammed Rebel over on Rumble. $3 Rumble rant. Thanks for showing this and for your community. Hey, I appreciate you, bro. Thank you. Let me add this to the tally. As a reminder, guys, if you want to help me meet my real goal, which is to get 100 new subscriptions on my Substack this month, head over to carlin.substack.com. Sign up for a monthly subscription, $8 a month or $80 for a year for the annual subscription. You guys help fund the work I'm doing. The super chats are great. I really do appreciate them. But my preference is that people head over to carlin.substack.com and support my work over there, and you'll get breakdowns, you'll get email updates, you'll get all sorts of good stuff over there. and I appreciate it. Yes. Yes. They view Harris and Trump as equally bad. Correct. Real socialists, real communists do not believe that Kamala Harris is better than Donald Trump. Real socialists and real communists are not campaigning for Kamala Harris. Real socialists and real communists are not voting for Kamala Harris. Real socialists, real communists don't see any difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
When we stop building movements and attempt to move Harris, we've already disconnected ourselves from that history. As an example, George Jackson was murdered by prison guards in San Quentin on August 21st, 1971, why we celebrate Black August. When they cleaned out his prison cell, they found 99 political books. The 93rd book, logged right before Karl Marx's Capital, was an anthology of radical Palestinian resistance poetry published in 1970. Also found in his cell was a poem from that book titled "Enemy of the Sun" by Samir Al-Qasim, written out by him. The Black Panther Party later published this poem in their newspaper and said that it was written by George himself. This mistake speaks volumes. Not only does it show the persisting solidarity between Black and Palestinian people, but the poem illustrates the similarities of Black and Palestinian oppression and the politics needed by Black Americans to demand more than lesser evilism. Just to read a small piece of the poem. You may fool my friends with a borrowed face. You may build walls of hatred around me. You may glue my eyes to humiliation, O enemy of the sun, but I shall not compromise, and to the last pulse in my veins I shall resist. The racism necessary to keep capitalism alive continues to worsen for workers as we fail to fully understand how elections
The racism necessary to keep capitalism alive continues to worsen for workers. Why does it continue to worsen for workers?
My veins I shall resist. The racism necessary to keep capitalism alive continues to worsen for workers as we fail to fully understand how elections harm our conditions and our movements. Presidential elections of Democrats specifically have a way of sucking all life out of any movement that attempts to fight for reforms, abolish police, or stop a genocide. But as we look
So not only are they not going to vote for Kamala Harris, their assertion is that if they do anything related to Democrat electoral politics at all, it's going to suck the life out of their movement. Does everyone understand that? We'll listen again. Hey, Andrew, wait, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were victims of the police. Since the police are the protectors of private property, they are highlighted continually as standards to show what capitalism does to society. Yes! Yes, everyone give Andrew a round of applause. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well done, Andrew. Let's listen to that again. Let's listen to her talk about how evil it is to participate in Democrat elections again. Hang on, 38. Have to do math here for a second. There we go.
Last pulse in my veins I shall resist. The racism necessary to keep capitalism alive continues to worsen for workers as we fail to fully understand how elections harm our conditions and our movements. Presidential elections of Democrats specifically have a way of sucking all life out of any movement that attempts to fight for reforms, abolish police, or stop a genocide. But as we look to these revolutionary movements, we learn that better working conditions come from an unwillingness to give up our demands for measly crumbs. As the pro-Palestine movement, Black Lives Matter, and immigrants' rights movement has taught us, when we back down from building independent organizations and put energy into getting Harris elected, we fail each other and we concede our demands. Internationalism shows us what's possible and demands that we become more imaginative and become disconnected from US exceptionalism. As Steve Salaita explains, By tethering Palestine to the electoral circus, even temporarily, we concede that a hostile system the ruling class likes to call democracy supersedes Palestine's liberation. This idea is so unrealistic, so without precedent, that it doesn't even qualify as magical thinking. And speaking of magical thinking, this example has been killing me. Okay, on July 25th, Showing Up for Racial Justice, an organization formed in the Black Lives Matter movement, called on white men and women who wanted to commit to anti-racism to join a Zoom call to defeat MAGA and elect Harris.
Holy shit. Okay. I know this might be difficult to understand because probably everyone here has seen the videos of the BLM founders, Patrisse Cullors and that other woman, talking about being trained Marxists. And it is true. BLM is a Marxist organization. But what I want you to hear is, I've been undercover at multiple socialist events. Black Lives Matter has never actually really had a presence at real socialist events. We actually very rarely, and if people are honest, they'll admit this, we actually very rarely hear real socialists and real leftists talking about Black Lives Matter, the organization. They might talk about it in terms of like a movement that they're alluding to once in a while. They liked the spontaneous protest that happened in 2020. That was very helpful for them. But Black Lives Matter as an organization is honestly usually just not something that's brought up by the far left. And the reason is, and I think she just confirmed this, they actually perceive BLM to be too liberal for them. By liberal, I don't mean left of them, I mean to the right of them. They don't like liberals, they call them neoliberals. So what she's saying is, BLM is now in favor of Harris, fuck them. That's literally what she's saying. Because this, again, the Tempest Collective is extremely far left. Hey everyone, let's welcome ZP. ZP, first time here. I'm going to be Sponge for a while. ZP, try not to get overwhelmed. It takes a while. If you have questions, please ask them. I will be gentle, I promise. Just don't be a dick, bro. Just don't be a dick. Don't be mean. Don't be mean to me. Don't be mean to other people in the chat. But if you have questions, I'm deadly serious about this. Ask them. I will do my best to answer them. People in the chat will do their best to answer them. We're all here to learn together. And so it's a lot to take in. Just hang in there. And we'll help you. We'll help you come along as fast as we can. Let's listen to that again. I'm interested to see where this goes.
Magical thinking. And speaking of magical thinking, this example has been killing me. Okay, on July 25th, Showing Up for Racial Justice, an organization formed in the Black Lives Matter movement, called on white men and women who wanted to commit to anti-racism to join a Zoom call to defeat MAGA and elect Harris, alleging that voting for Harris was a strategic step to win a political landscape that would allow us to fight for more. That night, over 1,000 white men joined a call and raised $35,000 for Harris. And over 130,000 white women joined a call and raised over $2 million. I thought we didn't have no money, y'all. Not only does this illustrate the failure of the left to have organizations ready to take on big questions of that strategy and landscape, but it also shows the expectations of the moment we are in. As Palestinians in Gaza have been fundraising to get out, and organizers have been fundraising to get our comrades out of jail, Harris, who signed up to be the literal face of racism and imperialism, got millions of dollars. This is exactly how elections suck energy out of
Harris is the literal face of racism and imperialism. Can we just go back and reflect on that for a moment? I told you this presentation was going to be good. Hang on.
To get our comrades out of jail, Harris, who signed up to be the literal face of racism and imperialism.
Harris, who signed up to be the literal face of racism and imperialism. They literally believe that Kamala Harris is the face of racism and imperialism. Imperialism means capitalism. Lenin said imperialism is the highest form of capitalism. Whiteness also means capitalism. How could Kamala Harris be the face of racism, guys? Kamala Harris is black. If whiteness means white skin color, then how is it possible? How is it humanly possible, dissident right-wingers, how is it possible that Kamala Harris is the literal face of racism? Remember, I got attacked in a Twitter space last night for explaining exactly this same concept to a group of people who were not smart enough to comprehend it. And now the very next day, we hear far left radical revolutionary socialists say Kamala Harris is the literal face of racism. How is that possible if whiteness means skin color, guys? It's not. It's not. Because whiteness doesn't refer to skin color. Whiteness refers to capitalism. Kamala Harris is the literal face of capitalism. Those are two words that mean the same thing. Racism means capitalism, and imperialism means capitalism. Kamala Harris is the literal face of capitalism. That is what she's saying. There is no amount of rationalization that fucking Ian Malcolm can make, or fucking Leonardo can make, or fucking Flat Earther Whitsitt can make, or Stu Peters, or any of these other morons. There is no amount of mental gymnastics that they can engage in to explain why a far-left radical revolutionary socialist is saying that Kamala Harris is the literal face of racism. If, as they assert, whiteness means white skin color, because it doesn't. Not in this context. Racism means systemic racism. The system in systemic racism is capitalism. Don't worry, I called Whitsitt a flat earther several times last night, and I assured Whitsitt that I would never take him seriously ever, and then I blocked him on Twitter. Because why would I interact with a flat earther? Why would I lower myself? We're not playing that game. Nope. Again.
In Gaza have been fundraising to get out, and organizers have been fundraising to get our comrades out of jail. Harris, who signed up to be the literal face of racism and imperialism, got millions of dollars. This is exactly how elections suck energy out of our movements. Since Thursday, April 18th, starting at Columbia University, hundreds of encampments sprung up across the world to demand for their universities to divest from Israeli genocide. Colleges, so many colleges got their demands met. Over 2,500 people were arrested, and hundreds of thousands of students have been radicalized here in this room today.
True. These
encampments did more for the movement to end genocide than voting or campaigning will ever do. Yeah.
These movements,
together,
the college student, they believe that the student encampments did more to get political results that they cared about than political campaigning or elections ever will. Again, people really need to wrap their heads around this. I know I feel like I keep saying the same thing over and over and over again, but people need to learn from repetition. The reason that they believe, that they keep saying the student protests got more results for us than political campaigns or political elections ever will, is because that is the tactic that they are going to use to try to overthrow the United States government. Social disruption, mass protest, taking over buildings. That's what they believe gets results. They do not believe voting is going to get results. They do not believe campaigning is going to get results. They believe mass protest, social disruption, civil unrest, burning down buildings, taking over buildings, overthrowing institutions. That's what's going to get them results. Does everyone understand? Exactly, Dinker, exactly. The same way that Larry Elder would be considered the black face of white supremacy. You are not wrong. You are dead on. Well done. Revolution does not mean voting nicely at the ballot box. True, Wolfgang. True. Nope. No. Don't go down that road, Pauline. Because you're talking about a different group of people. I don't want to get into this today. What you're talking about with the globalists are a different group of people. She's not talking about the Jews, by the way. She's talking about the WEF.
to end genocide than voting or
Hang on,
campaigning.
I want you to hear that again.
Since Thursday, April 18th, starting at Columbia University, hundreds of encampments sprung up across the world to demand for their universities to divest from Israeli genocide. So many colleges got their demands met. Over 2,500 people were arrested, and hundreds of thousands of students have been radicalized here in this room today. These encampments did more for the movement to end genocide than voting or campaigning will ever do. Yeah. Together, we were able to learn lessons about keeping each other safe and imagining a new world. And as Iman Abdelhadi says, the existence of the encampment itself was a win and a practice run for a revolutionary future. These encampments taught us the lethal force Harris spoke to in her DNC speech is a value of the Democratic Party. We got to see progressive college presidents and Democratic mayors who are corporatizing their cities and universities give the approval to brutally attack protesters.
So now they're pissed off that college presidents and mayors utilize the police against the college protesters because real socialists want to abolish the police. They want to defund the police. They believe the police are the managers of private property. Police are the enforcers of capitalism. So just because the left controls the institutions, you guys got to remember, the reason the left controls the institutions, the far left, is because of the faculty. It's not necessarily the administration. The faculty reports to the administration, but the faculty are actually more powerful than the administration because many of the faculty members are in tenured positions that it is impossible to get fired from. When we say the far left controls the universities, we're not talking about the presidency, we're talking about the faculty, the people who are actually teaching, the people who are actually interacting with students. College presidents don't teach students. College cabinets don't teach students. College leadership, and I worked in higher education for 10 years. College leadership very rarely interacts with students. Who interacts with students? Faculty members, professors, graduate students, teaching assistants. That's who interacts with students. That's where the far left comes from. That's why the far left owns the universities. It's not because of the leadership. And in fact, yeah, well, they also view, remember, and we talked about this last night on the Twitter space, which I'm sure they weren't smart enough to understand. The college students view the leadership of universities as basically they view the universities as illegitimate corporate institutions that have aligned themselves too closely to capitalism. This is why there's an adversarial relationship between the students and the administration. People might think they're all on the left, Carlin, they're all on the left. No, they're not. No. The students are on the extreme revolutionary far left. The administration are beholden to Jewish interests. I hope everyone knows that, right? They're beholden to billionaire Jews that are funding them. But the interests of the administration are opposed to the interests of the far left radical revolutionary students and the far left faculty. Remember, we saw this at Columbia. We saw the faculty protested alongside the students at Columbia. The faculty set up a picket line in front of the students. When they tried to call the police on the students, the faculty actually stood in front of the students and protected them. The faculty were on the side of the students, and the faculty and the students were aligned against the administration. Does everyone understand? Okay.
Arrest us in thousands and use the surveillance state so big and strong that students, faculty, and staff are fearful of being able to graduate, keep our jobs, and even muster the word Zionism. We got to see Black and brown leaders we were told to campaign for call in the cops to attack 18-year-olds and tenured faculty. And if that doesn't speak to the landscape we will face under Harris, I don't know what does. When we rely on identity politics and elections to dominate our understanding of the world without a radical foundation, the foundation begins to crack, allowing Democrats to convince us that organizing and campaigning for them is of the same fight as the encampments. The Black Lives Matter movement gave us the foundation and lens to better understand Israel's genocide of Palestinians in a different way. The movement shifted an ideological way of thinking about police, harm, and community, connecting our lessons from the international Black radical tradition to our experience in the streets of Sanford and Ferguson and Minneapolis. The BLM movement became to fade, one, because of its lack of infrastructures of dissent, a lack of spaces for people to debate and vote on what's next for the movement, but it also began to fade when Biden intervened and made commitments to us about defunding the police.
The BLM movement, according to them, has faded. Oh, J. Marie Mitchell condemned Lauren Chen today. I am shocked. I am shocked that AstroTurf J. Marie Mitchell, a gays against... How many... If anyone still doesn't believe me that Gays Against Groomers is just a grifting op, even though I called this shit out a year and a half ago. I correctly, a year and a half ago, called Gays Against Groomers a conservative AstroTurf grifting op. It was specifically created to support Ron DeSantis, by the way. And I was like, no, Carlin, Gays Against Groomers does wonderful work. Well, guess what? I interviewed no less than like a dozen former people who worked for Gays Against Groomers or volunteered for Gays Against Groomers, and all of them told me the organization was bullshit, and I blew the whistle on all of this, and I posted all their internal communications publicly on my Substack, and people still didn't believe me that it was a conservative grifting op. And now look what happens. J. Marie Mitchell is denouncing Lauren Chen because she is a paid conservative fucking shill. Always has been. Always will be. Always. Every time. So I feel like some people might owe me some $2 super chats. I know some of you have already paid up your $2 super chats. If you already paid up your $2 Carlin is Right super chats, that's okay. But if anyone still didn't believe me that Gays Against Groomers was a grifting op, and you see J. Marie Mitchell jumping on the fucking bandwagon and denouncing Lauren Chen like the shill that she is, and you like if it hasn't clicked yet, I don't know what to tell you. Yep, some people knew I was right the entire fucking time. It's true.
Before his election, struggle was high. People were creative and imaginative. School boards voted to terminate contracts with police. The majority of Americans were down for that, for the police precinct to be burned down. People started to shift their opinions about abolition. But since he was elected, police budgets have increased, as we've witnessed since October 7th at the street protests and encampments we've gone to, and more Black people have been killed by police under Biden than the Trump presidency. The amount of Black and brown faces in high places making deadly decisions that affect us materially is appalling. But we need to do more than end our argument at having that assessment of the Black misleadership class. Most poor and working class Black people know the difference between us and them. Black Lives Matter and Movement for Black Liberation, Movement for Black Lives have yet to endorse Harris. We have lived through watching and protesting Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens and the Atlanta Foundation support building a cop city in a historically Black neighborhood on stolen Muskogee lands, when police and Israeli occupation forces will be trained on how to kill us with impunity here and abroad. We remember Obama's Morehouse speech when he demeaned Black men and told them to pull up their pants. We remember when Baltimore Mayor Marilyn Mosby was the one to make the call to put more cops on the corner where Freddie Gray was murdered weeks later. We remember Tyree Nichols, who was murdered by 5 Black Memphis police officers who were in a unit called Scorpion, created by a Black woman police chief, Sarah Lynn Davis. The Black left and even the Black working class know all too well not to trust politicians and cops. We know what to expect if Harris wins, because we clocked her in 2020 when she attempted to run for president. But in 2020, we had a whole abolitionist movement behind us calling her out for her coward behaviors. Now, with an unorganized left lacking a clear strategy, campaigning and raising money for her sounds like the only strategy. If we don't make the connection between Obama's and Harris's and Dickens and Adams' pro-Israel stance and their criminalization and demonization of the Black working class, we will continue to fail. The state, no matter who runs it, will kill us and then say we killed each other. To quote Malcolm again, he explains, as long as we think that we should get Mississippi straightened out before we worry about the Congo, we'll never get Mississippi straightened out. To shift to the immigrants' rights movements and its lessons on electoralism, Harsha Walia argues that borders and immigration policies are generally only viewed as a migrant justice issue. Oh, thank you. Distinct and separate from anti-imperialism, Black liberation, and indigenous decolonization. However, the way working class people experience borders all over the world is tied to the theft of land and surplus value. Settler colonialism's life source is criminality and illegality, which is why we...
Settler colonialism, they're also talking about borders. As a reminder, socialists are completely open borders because they don't believe borders should exist. Borders, of course, enforce private property. They want to abolish all private property. Therefore, they don't want borders to exist. Settler colonialism is a reference to taking indigenous land and privatizing it under the oppressive force of capitalism. Settler colonialism is literally creating a border. There was land that belonged to the indigenous, that was cared for by the indigenous, that was then taken from the indigenous, had a border put around it. That's what settler colonist means. That's what Israel is. Just want to listen to that one more time. We're getting so much good stuff out of this. This is great.
Justice issue. Oh, thank you. Distinct and separate from anti-imperialism, Black liberation, and indigenous decolonization. However, the way working class people experience borders all over the world is tied to the theft of land and surplus value. Settler colonialism's life source is criminality and illegality, which is why we must remain rooted, developing a critical analysis of how imperialist tactics work to divide us. If we stay connected to internationalism, it teaches us that no nation state will prioritize us, and the state does not and will not ever transform itself. The far right, like Texas Governor Abbott and Trump, are using human beings as political pawns to force the Democrats to move right on immigration policy, making the border regime bipartisan. And because the Democrats have no values or backbone, moving right on racist policy is a norm for them, because they have no answers for us why housing and groceries are so high. The xenophobia and scapegoating of migrants is a tool to pit working class people against one another, and the immigrants' rights movement, whether we assess the undocumented and unafraid protests in the early 2000s, or the fight against SB 1070, an Arizona law that made it legal to racially profile brown people, teaches us so much about the border regime and the prison industrial complex, which is following a long tradition of upholding systems rooted in anti-Black racism and anti-indigeneity, with a goal to kick out and immobilize the next group of people the global North villainizes. Knowing this history can help us create strategies of resistance that won't be sidelined by the kinds of divide and rule policies Harris is hoping we fall for. To conclude, it is easy for us to analyze how evil the Democrats are and how they contribute to fascism that's creeping on our doorstep. But offering a
She just called the Democrats evil. She literally just said the Democrats are evil. Stop fucking calling the Democrats socialists. Please stop calling the Democrats socialists. The real socialists think that the Democrats are evil and a form of fascism. Again.
Kinds of divide and rule policies Harris is hoping we fall for. To conclude, it is easy for us to analyze how evil the Democrats are and how they contribute to fascism that's creeping on our doorstep. But offering a convincing solution is a hard task for a left that is unorganized. Whether we are new to struggle or have been in struggle for 50 plus years, we often forget what it means and what our solution needs to be to stop a genocide, fight for land back to indigenous peoples, or bring down a border wall. We forget to have huge demands and not be won over when Democrats tell us our demands are too unrealistic. It takes struggle to stay curious, creative, and hopeful. But what is struggle? What are we asking of people who say they are unsure what to do in a moment of despair, besides voting for a Black South Asian woman who gives us permission to cling a little bit to U.S. exceptionalism, when the material reality for so many of us is so futile? It's struggle. It's bearing witness to a cop hitting your 18-year-old student with a rubber bullet in the head and then brutally arresting your other student the same night at an encampment protest and allowing that anger to take over your body. It's being on the streets of Ferguson in 2014 when thousands of people learned how to handle the tear gas from Palestinians on Twitter who were facing Israel's bombardment on Gaza. It's finally joining your labor union that you've been putting off and voting to strike. It's developing the skills to facilitate a meeting so that everyone feels heard and can confidently vote. It's asking newly radicalized people to do stuff, like take notes at a meeting. It's asking people if they need rides before you head to your local protest. It's feeling a little bit more confident in your politics because you made the commitment to yourself and your community to read for 20 minutes before bed since October 7th. Struggle is necessary because it forces us to reckon with the lack of disorganization and fear of democracy in our communities. It's necessary because it shows us the power in us and our own self-activity. Changing yourself to better show up for your community is a hell of a drug. When you see thousands of people take on the cops and then the cops back down, you demand more. Struggle is the opposite of disillusionment and despair. It's committing your life to the revolution. It's being in a political organization with others who are assessing the movement, building coalitions, and moving together. And like Sameh Al-Qasim said—
Did you catch that? Struggle is committing yourself to the revolution. Struggle is the perpetual revolution. It's committing yourself to the
for
revolution.
your community is a hell of a drug.
Struggle.
When you see thousands of people take on the cops and then the cops back down, you demand more. Struggle is the opposite of disillusionment and despair. It's committing your life to the revolution. It's being in a political organization with others who are assessing the movement, building coalitions, and moving together. And like Sameh Al-Qasim said in the poem that George Jackson was quoted for, I shall not compromise, and to the last pulse in my veins, I shall resist. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Kristen. We appreciate you.
That was Kristen, and now we got Brian.
Comrades,
Comrades!
this whole topic should be a very simple one. The very notion that support for genocide is a lesser evil should render the entire equation as a patent absurdity, and that should be it. And yet, at the DNC convention, we saw chants and signs ecstatically proclaiming, "We love Joe," literally being used to cover up a solitary banner unfurled by Democratic delegates with the simple request to stop providing bombs being used against schools and hospitals in Gaza. Now, most of these spineless supporters blocking the simple message would probably even admit what's happening in Gaza is bad. But they tell us, what about domestic issues? What about the Republicans being so much worse in reproductive rights, being trolls around gender and sexuality, and what about Harris being black? I think my co-presenters already spoke well to this, but I would just ask people to again pause and consider the ethical dimensions of a society that puts these up against each other, and ask people to ask which of these is more tolerable. Lesser evilism is a strategy that has lost. The notion of even imposing these questions as which is more tolerable speaks to what I want to spend my time speaking on this panel about. I think one of the most damning consequences of the lesser evil strategy is that it smothers the political imagination of our movements. It lowers the political horizon of what is possible, and it methodically chastises any notion that we can actually fight for what we want. These messages, which are deployed every 4 years, over and over by political leaders, by union bureaucrats, and the mouthpieces of the nonprofit industrial complex, impact how people, working class people, the oppressed, young radicals, think about their role in trying to change the world and what impact that it may have. And this is precisely the opposite of what the left should be doing. The left should be the ones who are continuously and consistently arguing with passion, verve, and zeal to not tolerate the insufferable intransigence of our political system, to raise the political horizon of what is possible and what is required, and to methodically chastise those who say you can't fight for what you want. And most importantly, to pair those words with the important deeds of organizing.
Lauren Chen got removed from YouTube? Was it the Tenet Media channel? Was there a private channel? What the fuck? Jesus Christ. Man, I really hope Lauren Chen figures this shit out. Yo, hang on. Let me just look at this real quick. Lauren Chen. Yeah, I don't see her channel coming up. Wow. Wow. That's crazy. Tenet, she should get a fucking cozy channel. Tenet, this media, is that still up? Megyn Kelly's throwing Lauren Chen under the bus. Wow. Yeah, I don't see Tenet Media still up either, honestly. Man. She still has a Rumble account. They removed the channel for violating community guidelines. Are you shitting me? Guys, this might be a good time to all make sure you're subscribed to my Rumble channel. I'm rumble.com/Carlin. If everyone could just take like a minute just to make sure you are subscribed to me on Rumble. I just put the link in the chat. I'm also on Kick. I'm kick.com/CarlinB. So please make sure you're subscribed to me on Rumble, just in case. Just in case. We might do something controversial later on Rumble, I'm thinking. Wow. They removed her fucking... She might have gotten mass reported, though. She might have just gotten mass reported. Wow. Well, guys, Lauren Chen is a really smart cookie. She's smart. She's got connections. She's got a lot of people who love her. She's got a lot of people who support her. Let's all just send positive vibes. So, like, I absolutely believe that Lauren Chen is getting fucked over because of her position on Israel. Like, it's very, very, it's so fucking clear. If you look at the people who are coming out against her, they're all the worst people on the internet. They're all being funded by the same fucking people. They wanted to shut up Lauren Chen. Lauren Chen was Lauren Chen was so dangerous to them because Lauren Chen is a reasonable person. Lauren Chen is not someone they could ever paint as having these outlandish responses. Lauren Chen was always so measured in the things that she was saying to make sure she couldn't be cut out of context. So everyone just send positive vibes to Lauren Chen because this sucks for her. I'm sure she's under a lot of stress and, you know, prayers for her family and stuff like that because this sucks. Lauren Chen couldn't be bought. Anyone who can watch this happening to her and doesn't understand what's happening, I don't know what to say. I don't know how you can watch this happen to someone like her. And, like, I've got people all over my chat calling me a traitor for saying, I don't give a fuck if Lauren Chen took money from Russia. Where's all the outrage about all the money that other people are taking? Why isn't there equal outrage? Wasn't it the fucking conservative right that was, like, literally on the side of Russia when Russia invaded Ukraine? I'm old enough to remember what happened when I put a Ukrainian flag in my fucking Twitter profile because I am literally married to a Ukrainian. And I got attacked resoundingly by the conservative right for having a Ukrainian flag in my Twitter profile because they were all on the fucking side of Russia. And I was like, I don't know if that's such a good thing. And I kind of stayed neutral the whole time. And I said the United States should stay out of it. And now all of those people who have been touting Vladimir Putin, who have been talking about how great Russia is in terms of like its total crackdowns on woke stuff, all of a sudden they're pissed off that Lauren Chen took money from Russia. I don't give a fuck. What about all the people who've taken money from Israel? What about all the people who've taken money from AIPAC? What about all the people who've taken money from pharmaceutical companies? What about all the people who have taken money from AstroTurf fucking political organizations? Where's the outrage for that? Because it's exactly the same fucking thing. So stupid. Hey, Roslyn! Roslyn! Hey, Carlin, I like the new hairstyle. Thank you, Roslyn. It's under a hat today because I didn't get a chance to take a shower. Learning a lot this stream. This stream is really great. I'm having a great time. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. Thank you so much for the money, Roslyn. I appreciate you. Let me do some math here. Update my total real quick. Roslyn, we were just talking before you super chatted in. We were talking about how we should ship all the dumb people out to Australia. You might have an issue with that because you are indeed Australian, and you probably would make the cut of being a smart person. So what would happen, Roslyn, is that you would get to leave Australia and go live with smart people somewhere else, and then once only the stupid people were left in Australia, we would ship all the other stupid people there, and it would be like the land of retardia on an island. But you would be okay because you're a smart person. So you could get to go and live in the country of your choice. Are you stupid? Are you smart enough to be here? No, I'm serious. Like, are you smart enough to be here? No one's taking money from Israel? Really? Really? What's your IQ? When was the last time you took an IQ test? Come on. Hey, thanks, Nick. Yeah, karma will come for them someday. That is very true. Listen, guys, I feel more blessed than ever to be completely independent from all of that bullshit. I used to be upset that conservative media had blacklisted me. I used to be upset that they wouldn't cover any of my content. I used to be upset about it. And now, kind of looking how it's all played out, I'm actually really, I'm really happy at the way things played out, and I'm really happy to be independent of all of them, and I'm really happy that I get to say and do whatever the fuck I want because I don't report to any of them, and I don't take money from any of them, and I don't need help from any of them because they never help me anyway. You know, everything happens for a reason, guys. Everything happens for a reason. Even if we don't like it at the time, when you look back with the benefit of hindsight, you see that everything happens for a reason.
Such a fight. My comrade Eamon McCann, who is a veteran Irish socialist who helped to lead the civil rights struggle against British colonialism in the 1960s, who helped organize the insurrectionary free dairy movement and is still fighting today, once told me that he drew two lessons from his many, many decades of organizing. He said, one, never let the ruling class off the hook, and two, watch out for people who say, stop, this is the best we can do right now. Yeah. The lesser evil strategy preaches the exact opposite of both of those lessons. This strategy argues that not only should you vote for what you don't want, but confusedly that you should want what you don't want, because that can make it easier for what you do want, hypothetically and at some undetermined, never-defined point in the future. It continually, consistently pushes off the fight for down the road. We can't actually fight now. This is all we can do. It's a politics of hopelessness that I hear anytime when I'm talking to someone who sighs and says, well, someone has to be the president. And during this specific episode of this tired political drama, they're trying to paper over that hopelessness around Harris and Walz by mustering a sort of fabricated excitement to pursue a vibes-based spectacle on display here in Chicago at the DNC that's fueled...
Guys, I need to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. I need to go to the little socialist room. I'm going to let this play while I'm gone. Take good notes. Let me know if I miss anything.
With some kind of sigh of relief that at least she's not the walking corpse of Joe Biden. And I think that's exemplified by the show of the rapper Lil Jon performing at the DNC, pumping up the crowd to turn out for what? And while this is happening, another Palestinian school is bombed, $20 billion in arms is sold to Israel from the US, and Israeli soldiers are raping Palestinian prisoners in full video, bragging about it on TV, and being defended on the Israeli Knesset. With that juxtaposition, I want to ask, turn out for what? Around the question of Palestine, we see this most profoundly. Despite Harris being explicitly clear, as she did in her statement on August 8th, that she is opposed to an arms embargo in Israel, despite the party platform approved at this past convention that not only says nothing about an embargo, but issues complete and unbending support for Israel in the fight against Hamas, that criticizes the United Nations' one-sided efforts to condemn Israel, despite Harris receiving an all-in endorsement from liberal Zionist J Street and the more hawkish Democratic Majority for Israel, who endorsed her because, they say, she is a proud, pro-Israel Democrat with a strong record of supporting the U.S.-Israel relationship. But despite all these things, we're told that somehow she's different.
All right, I'm back.
James Zogby, longtime Democratic Party advocate and president of the Arab American Institute, tells us that she's turning a corner. One Minnesotan uncommitted activist said on Democracy Now! That her selection of Tim Walz as a VP nominee is a gift to young people and Palestinians, quote, to feel more energized about Harris and a reminder that she is different. In order to corral or capture people who sympathize with the plight of Palestinians, in order to turn the page on the disgust with Biden and to quiet the vast majority of Americans of both parties who are for an immediate ceasefire, they have to say these things. They have to promise that she is movable, promote some myth based on smoke that are unspoken potential policies that may arise at some undefined mark in the future is somehow better than what she explicitly says right now. Ceasefire now, we chant in the streets. Not another bomb, the banners read. And to this, the heroes of lesser evilism say, not now, but maybe she can change, just give her your vote. And don't worry, AOC assured us at the DNC that she is working tirelessly for ceasefire, which is either a blatant lie at worst, or at best, she's pretty fucking bad at her job.
Oh! It's almost like the real socialists hate AOC. They don't believe a word she says. They don't like her. They don't think she's on their team.
Not now, but maybe she can change, just give her your vote. And don't worry, AOC assured us at the DNC that she is working tirelessly for ceasefire, which is either a blatant lie at worst, or at best, she's pretty fucking bad at her job. Lesser evilism presents these baseless hopes, presented to turn out the votes of working class people, all the while lowering expectations. Natalia spoke well about how we actually can't do both. Vote for lesser evil and organize a counterweight. There's another reason why that argument, that we can do both, fails, that speaks to the way in which lesser evilism dampens the imagination and political horizons. Natalia pointed out that it's just not one vote on one day. It's not what we're talking about. Elections are events that occur alongside of and sometimes overlapping with the organizing of concrete social movements and the coalescence of political ideas. So our question should be, does it help or hinder the development of social movements? Does it push forward or hold back the confidence of people who are thinking about fighting back? Does it illuminate or confuse the political lessons that we educate the people that we are so desperately trying to move into activity, to bring with us into the struggle? And in that context, you actually can't do both. You can't say, I support this party and you should too, and then criticize the undemocratic nature of a state devised to institute minority rule on behalf of the capitalist class. You can't say Harris and thus the U.S. state is movable, open to convincing.
By the way, this is the second person. This is the second person who's talked about this. The idea that the Constitution supports minority rule. The first woman talked about it as well. I just didn't comment on it at the time. What do socialists say when they mean that the Constitution supports minority rule? What does that mean? Does anyone know? This is going to be, you need to, don't just throw my talking points at me because that's not going to give you the right answer, okay? What do socialists mean when they say minority rule? Well, while I'm waiting for answers to come in, Fascist New World Order, thank you for the Rumble rant. I'm not sure how much power these revolutionary fools have, more than you might think. I think they fell for another scam. No, they didn't, but someone needs to be listening to what they say because they're lunatics. Well, I agree with that last part. Hey, thanks for the Rumble rant. I do appreciate it. What do socialists say when they say the Constitution is set up for minority rule? Are they talking about racial minorities? Are they talking about sexual minorities? Are they talking about, who are they talking about when they say the minority? Bot, this is like the trifecta. Bot, you should make yourself a special certificate because bot gets 3 gold stars today. Bot has been at the forefront of all the correct answers that have come out of the chat today when everyone else is thinking about it. Bot has been right. They're talking about the rich. They're talking about the bourgeois. They're not talking about racial minorities. They're not talking about, women. They're talking about the oppressors. When they say the Constitution is set up to support minority rule, the minority is the bourgeois. The minority is the private property owners. The bourgeois. The rich capitalists. Exactly. The capitalists. That's who they're talking about, because they believe the majority are the proletariat. The majority are the workers. The workers are oppressed by a small capitalist class that seeks to keep themselves in power. Exactly. That's why they say eat the rich. The rich are the minority. The proletariat, the oppressed, they are the majority. A dictatorship of the proletariat is the workers ruling over society. The workers taking the position of the bourgeois. Does that make sense? Let me know. Let's go back and listen to that again.
I support this party, and you should too, and then criticize the undemocratic nature of a state devised to institute minority rule on behalf of the capitalist class. You can't say Harris, and thus the U.S. state, is movable, open to convincing, and at the same time steel people to carry out the kind of antagonistic fight needed against the party of genocide, war, neoliberalism, militarized borders, mass incarceration, and trigger-happy racist cops. It shifts the path of struggle into backroom negotiations and minuscule policy shifts, and claims that our enemies are our friends. So in addition to Palestine, I want to mention two other examples that show this clearly. The Green New Deal. Before the Biden presidency, there was a great deal of momentum around the plan to fully decarbonize the U.S. by 2030 with large public spending infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. Groups like the Sunrise Movement held public actions, sitting in congresspeople offices, et cetera. The global climate strike in 2019 saw a vibrant wave of youthful protest. 65% of all voters and 85% of Democratic voters were in favor of it. People like Biden's left supporters, certain erstwhile socialist lesser evil advocates, tweeted things like this right before the election of Biden. They said, quote, "I hope Biden wins so we can organize mass protests and strikes to force to pass the New Deal," end quote.
Wow.
But now, as Biden slouches away into retirement, what do we have to show for it? Mobilizations under Biden have ceased. Sunrise Movement was integrated into the administration through the Biden-Sanders Unity Task Force. And what do we have to show for it? No Green New Deal, a pledge to end drilling on public land, becoming more permits approved than Trump, 34% more in Biden's first year in office, more than any president since George W. Bush. Under Biden, the U.S. hit its record high in daily crude oil output. Instead of the Green New Deal, though, we got the Inflation Reduction Act. While it's one of the largest pieces of environmental legislation in U.S. history, it's a minuscule fraction of the spending that is required to meet the demands of the climate emergency. It's reliant on market-based solutions in the private sector, unproven carbon capture technology, and features massive payouts to fossil capital, handing out millions of acres in public land. One environmental activist called the IRA a climate suicide pact. But suicide, according to Jacobin's assessment of the matter, is the best we got. But you know who did get it good? Oil companies. The major 5 U.S. oil companies had profits under Biden increase 100% more than Trump, $410 billion if you're keeping score. And Harris, of course, will carry this legacy on, has already flipped her position to be pro-fracking. So on the question of the environment, it isn't even clear that Biden was a lesser evil. And he drew less protest and demobilized social movements as lesser evil proponents championed how easy it was going to be under Biden. The next example is immigration. During the Trump presidency, there were protests in over 600 cities, drawing thousands upon thousands in the street. 30,000 marched in New York City against family separation and immigrant detention. Prominent immigrant rights activists said, "I've literally never seen Americans show up for immigrants like this." That was the mood in the street. Squad members like AOC drew massive backlash and headlines by their correctly calling the detention centers concentration camps and echoing the slogans to abolish ICE. But once Biden became president, these concentration camps continued to exist. They were simply stopped being called concentration camps by the so-called left. No longer was it about pushing for abolition, but slight, minuscule, almost irrelevant policy changes. And Biden has faced no major protests around these issues, even though he expelled more migrants than Trump exponentially. Trump expelled 2 million migrants in his 4-year term. Biden expelled 2.8 million in his first 2 years. And under Biden, the Democrats, as we talked about before, have lurched rightward in response to the grotesque Republican xenophobia and nativism that was Trump's trademark with his build the wall mantra. And yet, indeed, Biden has built that wall. He has even used executive action to continue to build the border wall, a position that Harris has pledged to continue. This lurch rightward meant that in February, the Democrats put forward a funding bill to increase ICE detention capacity, to add more asylum restrictions, to add a border shutdown provision, and then tied the whole thing to $14 billion for Israel. And the silence from progressives on this is deafening. Why? Because they're scared of Trump, which is understandable. And yet, this fear of Trump ushered in Biden that then resulted in the continuance of the same racist, militarized bordering regimes. And these list of examples is numerous. Laying them out in the balance sheet, one can see that the claim made by people who advocate the strategy of lesser evilism, that it takes advantage of institutional space to build a political counterweight to challenge the Democrats, looks pretty thin. What kind of political counterweight proclaims that Biden is, quote, the most effective president in modern history, as Sanders claimed, the best president in my lifetime, Ilhan Omar proclaimed, and one of the most successful presidents in modern history, as AOC cheered. Best border walls, successful police violence, effective genocide. This position is false and dangerous. It's one of the primary contributors to the weakness of the American left. The strategy of lesser evilism does not build a counterweight. It throws its lot in with the powers that be, demobilizes and sows political confusion. The role of the left, rather, needs to be raising the political horizon of what is possible and what is required. We need to be clear and honest about the structural and constitutional limitations that Natalia opened this panel talking about. We are talking about the Democratic Party, the oldest acting political party in the world. We're talking about the U.S. state, the chiefest purveyor of violence in the world, an institution representing the most powerful of national capitalist classes.
Oh!
And we're talking about the U.S. ruling class.
Hang on. What did he just say? Again, he called the United States the representative of the capitalist classes. Again.
Talking about. We are talking about the Democratic Party, the oldest acting political party in the world. We're talking about the U.S. state, the chiefest purveyor of violence in the world, an institution representing the most powerful of national capitalist classes.
The United States is an institution representing the most powerful of national capitalist classes. The far left believes that there is no reform that is possible in government because the government serves the capitalist classes. The Constitution serves the capitalist classes. When they say that the Constitution serves the minority, they're saying the Constitution serves the capitalist classes. The Constitution was written by capitalists. It was written by private property owners. It was written by slave owners. It serves the minority capitalist class. The only way for them to get their Marxist revolution is to overthrow and abolish the things that serve the national capitalist class. Overthrow the Constitution. Overthrow the United States government. They don't believe they can do that from elections. You're listening to them talk about how they don't believe they can do that from elections. So how are they going to do it then? What do you think that's going to lead to? It's going to lead to the violent overthrow of the federal government. Like point blank. And everything they're doing right now is to position their chess pieces on the chessboard to get everyone into these institutional positions of power, to get people into the military, to push their agenda within the military. We know all this shit is in the military. To get people into different governmental organizations where they'll get a job and they'll sit in that job. They're basically putting sleeper agents into all the institutions they need to be in order to overthrow the government, and then someday they're just going to go. And it'll be quick when it happens. I really do think that. I think it'll be quick when it happens. I think we might see some violent skirmishes up until then, like here and there. But I think that once they decide to go, it will be impossible to stop them. Yes, that's exactly right. It's these people that made squatting legal. Exactly, they're the ones that are do like tenant rights stuff.
And we're talking about the U.S. ruling class, the most ruthless, violent, selfish social group ever known in human history. Calling Democrats the lesser evil lets them off the hook. To take that on, we need to be clear about what we're facing. It will take a strategy that focuses on fighting tooth and nail for class independence for our social movements and organizations. It will require the full resources of unions and left institutions to not throw away the large amount of money and person power they use to door knock, phone bank, turn out the vote for individuals that are admitted to be evil. It means building independent political organizations and infrastructures of dissent that will take longer than one election cycle to be built and will be dependent on the real engine of social progress, mass struggle from below. To do this, our fractured, small little side of the left will need the utmost clarity to act in tandem and resist the siren song of lesser evilism. It'll take us learning with and educating the new layer of militants, the lessons that you can fight for what you want, and that no one should accept.
The new layer of militants. They're calling activists in their cause the new layer of militants. It's their job to educate the new layer of militants.
And resist the siren song of lesser evilism. It'll take us learning with and educating the new layer of militants, the lessons that you can fight for what you want, and that no one should accept turning your agency to those who reject your demands or give you the bullshit lip service like Harris does around ceasefire. That we need to organize against and not acquiesce to the grotesque logic that somehow better if a slightly less number of people are gunned down by the police but hundreds are still killed, or maybe a little fewer Palestinians are blown apart by US bombs. We want those horrors to not happen. We cannot accept these countless unspeakable horrors as the best that we can do. It is the strategy of lesser evilism that has lowered political horizons into the subterranean. It has contributed to the collapse of left-wing organizations, the slow drift right of the Democratic Party, the absence of a real independent political vehicles for our side, and ceded ground to the far-right menace that the Trumps, Modis, Netanyahus, Orbans, and Malays of the world represent. We need to make what Kristen termed the convincing solution, that we must not sacrifice our struggles to people who have and will betray us. We need to have the urgency and militancy of organizing to take on this ravenous beast of a stolen country that we inhabit. And that means actually fighting for what we want and carrying on that fight until we win. To chart the dark swamp in which we find ourselves, with the politics of lesser evilism pulling us further into the morass, we need clearer, sharper politics to find our way out and into the bright future, always pushing our struggle forward.
All right. And now there's about a little over 10 minutes left of this, guys. I hope they're going to do a little bit of a Q&A. Q&A is always the best part. Well, not always, but it usually is the best part. So we're almost there. I know this has been a long episode, but I hope people have found this fruitful and helpful, especially new people who may have been tuning in for the first time. I'm trying to really break down their language so that you guys can see how it's showing up in the real world and then explaining what it means. Please, again, if you have questions, please ask the questions. We're always up for answering like good faith questions. So we do have about 10 minutes left. If you have not yet mounted the like button, now would be a great time to mount the like button for me. Make sure you are subscribed on whatever platform you're watching on, and let's wrap this up.
All right, thanks, comrades. And I'm so sorry, I have a very long list of people. I know that I did not get to everybody. My hope is that we'll continue to talk throughout the conference, talk to each other after this session. I'm also gonna just let folks know we are running a little behind, but I'm gonna give our speakers some time to wrap up. The very last thing, if you like what you heard and you wanna hear more about how to get involved with Tempest, we're a national organization. We've got chapters around the country. This is a little bit more about us. We also have a table outside the Haymarket Books room, and we're gonna have a mixer tonight in the Hyde Park room at 9 p.m.
You,
so please join us there.
Thank
and
you.
with that, I'm gonna let our comrades wrap up.
I wish we had more time for discussion, but obviously this is the beginning of a multi-year, probably, a lot of discussion and strategizing that's going to have to happen. I am not going to be able to get to everything, but I guess I want to say that we are not the first people to try to break this impasse. Like in U.S. history, there have always been people who have organized and tried absolutely everything we can to figure out how to build representation.
Well, okay, so yes, you're not wrong about this, Dara. There are a significant number of people on the left who are just using the conflict in Palestine in order to gain power. You are absolutely correct about that. However, there is a legitimate Free Palestine movement. There's been a legitimate Free Palestine movement for a while, and so there are actually legitimate Free Palestine activists that have always been Free Palestine activists. But you are correct that the majority of the activism, like the left, has made Palestine their number one issue. It was. I can't even tell you how many sessions at this conference were about fucking Palestine. This has become their issue. And so a lot of people who are engaging in this issue right now are using it to advance a far left political ideology. They're not doing it because they were always Free Palestine activists. But I do want to just acknowledge that there are legitimate Free Palestine activists. There are also a lot of people who are sympathetic to the Free Palestine movement that are not on the left. So it sometimes is a little uncomfortable when we end up being on the same side of the left with things. But, you know, we always just need to, there's nuance to all of this, but you're not wrong. Exactly. It's just another prong to attack capitalism. Exactly.
Working class people and the oppressed. And I think we have to have a little bit of patience with each other and ourselves, given the fact that this isn't going to be solved right now. And that if we're a minority, it's not because of our choice or because of like specific tactical issues. It's because of a system that's set up to continually disturb the process of a breakthrough. So that has to be our starting point in some way, because that is the task that we're talking about. In other countries, obviously, there's political representation that looks very different. Like I talk about the fact that we're still sort of on our first and a half republic. In other countries across Europe, they have their fifth republic. Like they've had a process of fine-tuning political representation based on struggles in ways that we haven't. And that means that we're still in a phase of needing to figure out how to fundamentally challenge that. I think that, I think it's good that there are people who are trying to organize third parties. I've in the past been part of organizing and campaigning for the Green Party. I'm not right now. I don't think any of these things overcome the political situation that we've described and that we've talked about. And I think that part of what we need to say is that their elections are important. It is not the case that we're like, elections are never going to be part of our strategy. But elections can only be part of our strategy if we have organized forces that are on the same page about what we're fighting for and how we're fighting for them. So I think that part of what we need to do is that we need to articulate an argument against electoralism. And not all electoralism comes from the ruling class. We need to be able to figure out how, and this comes to the question of what do you do when you win? Because for a left, we should not be saying that we're engaging in elections because that's how we overcome the like painful, terrible balance of class forces. We run elections to represent and be a mouthpiece and be a projection of all of the organizing and all of the work that goes into every day and to organizing in our workplaces and in our communities. This is, I think, a different way of thinking about elections and thinking about how we would run elections. And of course, we need an independent party. And what it would look like for us to build and what a membership organization that actually represented struggle would look very different than I think some of the electoral strategies we've seen over the last number of years. That winning an election is not winning. We don't win a demand when we win an election. We win a demand when we build a movement that's strong enough that we're able to actually completely overturn the existing thoughts about what's on offer. And we've seen that happen in countries around the world, and we need to think about what kind of strategies and lessons are going to bring us forward to move in that way. And the last thing I'll say is that in my political lifetime, I've seen no shortage of opportunities to organize people on the basis of political independence. But time after time, that process has been held back by the dominant politics and by sections of the left that say we shouldn't do that now and that pull us in the opposite direction. We can't organize, we can't get from A to B unless we start where we are. And we need to start by organizing ourselves, by continuing the process of building the Palestine movement, building rank and file caucuses in our organization, in our unions, and fighting for democracy and for places for us as ordinary people to participate in strategic debate and discussion. That is not something that should be left to somebody else who's like in a certain room. That's something we're all capable of, and it's necessary if we're gonna be able to build the types of lasting organizations that are gonna be able to overcome the particular historic weakness that the left in the US faces.
Yeah, thanks for the great discussion. I honestly don't have too much to add. I think, I felt like some of the comments around like the individualization of what I'm going to do on election day. Americans are really
must
good
have
at
had
being
a
individuals.
discussion or
We could probably
something.
poll everybody in this room, and we've all got different reasons for who
So
we're voting.
I think what happened is, remember, this was not the live stream. This was the edited thing that they released later. I think what happened is they held a discussion and they had a report back or something. And what they're responding to is like the discussion that took place that they didn't show us on camera. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because these sessions are 90 minutes long, and this is only an hour video. So they cut about a half an hour out of this video.
Voting for. I'm voting third party to piss off my grandma, right? Like it's just like everybody's going to have different reasons for doing what they're doing, and I don't think that's not the question, I guess. The question of the room is like the strategy of what you do with other people when you get in a room and you figure out what's happening locally in your cities, and that's the win. And I really like what Natalia said about defining the win. What are we trying to win? Because it's not a person in office.
So they don't want to see
and the
something.
wins that we do get, the reforms, it's not even necessarily the reform that's the win. It's like the radicalization of the people who were in struggle together. That's the win, because they're realizing the bigger way of demanding what we deserve, right? I want to speak specifically to trans rights because I think the Democrats have a way of using trans people the way they use a lot of other oppressed people to get us to vote for them. As a trans person, I don't
really,
know
but
all of the amazing wins we have right now.
remember, she's not trans as in she went from male to female or female to man. She's identifying as trans because she's non-binary, because she's queer, because she's a far-left radical revolutionary socialist. She's not transitioning her gender. She is transforming gender or transcending gender by saying, I don't identify as man or woman. That's what she means when she says trans. Transform or transcend, not transition. She's not doing anything to physically transition. She looks exactly the same today she did last year. I saw her in person last year. She looks exactly the same. We watched videos of her. She's not doing anything to physically transition. This is about giving the middle finger to the gender binary.
I think that we have a lack of a trans rights movement of trans people in the streets demanding what we deserve because of the Democrats. You need a letter to receive services. You have to prove that you're ill. That is not what we are demanding. Black trans women are being murdered in numbers. They did not let a trans person speak at the DNC. So we know that they will move right on trans people.
That is actually true.
And they will continue to do so.
Jeffrey Marsh was supposed to speak at the DNC. Jeffrey Marsh was scheduled to speak at the DNC, and then that didn't happen.
Cannot give over our rights to human rights campaign instead of building a movement. And trans people have failed to build that movement. The Human Rights Campaign stands on the murder of Palestinians. They stand on Black trans women being left in men's prisons, right? So if we really want a world of trans liberation, we have to end the genocide. That's the only way to go about it. So I do think that trans liberation fight is a really good example of the the failure of us to build a movement because of our reliance on the Democrats. So yeah, thanks, Shal. I really appreciated this.
I was just saying how good you all were on wrapping
Oh,
up.
okay. I'm just going to say three things and try to keep it really brief.
I like his tattoo.
The first is that I think I just really agree with
That looks
Natalia
cool.
saying about the whole question about
Blackout
electoralism.
tattoo except for red on
is
the arm.
elections are a viable strategy as long as we're clear that we're not going to vote out the capitalist class. And knowing that we do need to build some kind of political organization that can utilize that space to proclaim, our platform, counter numbers, as the old Marxists say. And I think that the point of part of this talk is also how these questions about how we're going to build some kind of independent political vehicle is always obscured by the challenge of lesser evilism, right? And so even having those conversations and thinking about the long-term task of what will take to build such a vehicle is always thrown to the side about the moral panic that then comes alongside of lesser evilism. So we do need to build that thing. I think we will need some kind of third party. I think that what exists now is pretty humble and scattered, and I have no illusion that any one of those is going to be the leader of the working class vanguard. But I think we need to build that, and building that alongside of rising social movements, and again, where real power comes from, which is movements in the streets. So with that, harm reduction. So yeah, I think the notion of harm reduction is why I have a certain sympathy with individuals who take 5 minutes and go and pull a ballot thing, whatever you do. Haven't voted in a while. To vote for someone, because it's like, yeah, I get it, right? But the problem is, again, conceiving it as like discrete individual acts, right? And so while I'm not going to go around and be like, you random person, don't go vote for this person, I think that we should methodically attack all the speakers from on high who tell people you have to do this because otherwise these horrible things are going to happen. And that's a stand-in for building political power of our class, of our side, that can actually confront the capitalists and the racists and the awful people in front of us, right? And so I think in thinking about harm reduction, harm reduction as a concept comes from the substance use world. Like, I'm a social worker. The point of it is to make things a little bit better in order to get off the drugs. But as it's deployed often, it's not a tack to how are we actually going to get off the Democrats, right? And so, yes, we can talk about harm reduction, et cetera, but we also have to pair that with, and how are we going to break, right? Which that part of the equation is always missing when people talk about harm reduction. And I think as parts of my talk showed also, it's not so often the case that the thing that is supposed to be the lesser evil actually is lesser, right? So that's a clear thing too. Last thing I'm going to sort of mention is just kind of closing by taking a little bit of a detour. Rafat al-Hariri, people may know of him, Palestinian poet, academic, teacher. He wrote a poem that is called "If I Must Die," and it ends with, "If I must die, let it bring hope, let it be a tale." And so I'm going to close by just a small little tale about Rafat. So in 2020, Rafat tweeted, "Fuck Trump and fuck Biden," before the election. So someone on Twitter, where all good political debate happens,
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
"You're less fucked with the Democrats, though." And as people know, on December 6, 2023, Israel killed him with a missile that struck his home after fleeing 2 other bombardments in his house in Gaza. And so when people say, "You're less fucked under them," I want them to answer to that.
That's it, guys. That's all she wrote. Hey, if this is your first time watching Socialism with me, that was a really good introduction. I hope that people appreciated it. I learned a lot. I had a really good time watching that. I think we're going to get a lot of clips out of that one. So, Reagan, just FYI, because Reagan runs a clip account for me on Twitter. Reagan, I'm going to be making some clips of this. I'm going to make sure you have access to the video files, and then you can do whatever you want with them in terms of like formatting them into. But like, we've got so many clips from this. I feel like we need to do a whole series series of clips just based on this one presentation. So I'm going to make sure you have access to the files, Reagan, so that you can do whatever you want with them. You are keeping tabs as well? Okay, so we can, like, this will be a joint effort. All right, guys, that's all we have for today. As a reminder, I do want to thank everyone for all the super chats that have been coming in. I really do appreciate it. I am independently funded by you. And that has become more important than ever. Because as we're seeing, every single person with a platform that takes money from someone either gets fucked over for taking money from someone, or they are beholden to shilling a conservative narrative that is really complimentary and never critical of certain countries. The only obligation I have is to tell you guys the truth and to show you the receipts, because I work for you. I don't work for any political organization. I don't work for any media outlet. I'm not a contractor with anyone. I am completely independent. I have been for years. I have built up a grassroots base of support where I don't have to shill any sort of narrative. The only thing I need to do is find the primary source evidence and show it to you guys and break it down and help you understand it. And then you can decide what you think. And you can decide how to live your life. And you can decide what to do with it. And so the only way that I'm able to do that is because people financially support the work I'm doing. If you would be so kind and are in a financial position to do so, please consider a membership on my Substack. That is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. This is my primary funding source on the internet. It is $8 a month. It is also $80 for a year if you want that option. And this is where I prefer people sign up to support my work. The more people that sign up to support my work, the more undercover stuff I'm able to do, the more independent journalism I'm able to do. We've got a whole bunch of cool stuff coming up for the back half of the year, guys. So I really want to meet this goal of getting 100 new supporters on the Substack, because the funding comes from the Substack. If people don't fund the work, it doesn't get done. The Daily Wire will lie to you for $20 a month. The Blaze will lie to you and fire good people when the government comes after them. All these other outlets lie to you. I'm never going to lie to you. I'm just going to show you receipts, and that's all I'm going to do. Hey, thank you, Lucy, for becoming a member of the channel. I really do appreciate it. So, guys, please make sure you're supporting my work if you can. That's what helps keeps this free for everyone. And I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Yasmin asked me about doing a Rumble show tonight. I might, Yasmin. It really depends on what Nick is doing tonight. Like, if Nick is going to do some long-ass stream with Sneeko that goes late into the night, I might not do it. But I might do a show tonight on Rumble. And if you guys want to get access to my show on Rumble or get notified when I go live, then what you're going to want to do is subscribe to my Telegram channel. Follow my Telegram. It's t.me/unwokex. I'll put the link in the chats. So follow the Telegram channel. I will send a notification if I decide to go live on Rumble, so that will go right to your phone, and you can come and join me. I don't know what time that would be, because it really depends on. I'm not going to stream over Nick's show or anything, because I lose like half my audience when I stream over Nick's stuff, because they're all watching Nick, as they should. And you should watch Nick too, because Nick Fuentes is one of the only people that's actually telling the fucking truth on the internet. Yeah, I believe that the Blaze was looking for a reason to get rid of Lauren Chen for a while, too. I was saying this. I called this earlier this year. Well, you can go back and look at the videos. I said Lauren Chen's going to lose her job at the Blaze because she platformed Nick Fuentes on a Twitter space. That's the way the conservative world works, guys. It's just reality. That's why I will never shill for any of these organizations. I will only work for you. All right, guys, that's all I have for right now. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'll see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. if I don't see you later on tonight. Have a good one, guys. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon. Bye. Actually, you know what? We're going to have some music. We're going to have a musical play out today. We're going to, in honor of James Lindsay's friend coming to talk to me, we're going to have a musical play out. We'll see you soon, guys. Bye.
James Lindsay is obsessed with lying to his audience. What crazy things can he get them to believe? He does it irresponsibly to pocket all that money from the Mills for Liberty. Mussolini tells us queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism. Catch up, change, whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, change. It's capitalism. Whoa. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, change. It's capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, change. It's capitalism. It's capitalism. To pocket all that money from the mills for liberty. Capitalism, but James won't admit it. He refuses to believe queer theory stabilizes normativity, gender binary, and the nuclear family. But James blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. To believe in something, what happens for liberty? Gnostic sex called evilism world. Gnostic sex called unhinged from reality. He's totally lost it. What can we do but mock him relentlessly?